Mr. Arison, when you sit next to Mr. Lyman there, if you could just state your full name and address for the record, please.
Sorry, I got a mess here. Go ahead.
We have bigger desks.
We'll put it in the budget for next year.
Sure. A little wider would be good.
My name is John Arison, A-R-A-S-O-N. John is spelled J-O-N. 707 Glendon, Glendon Avenue, Annapolis, 21403.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Praley, I can go through, and maybe for the record I need to, it's up to you all, his qualifications, but I understand he's testified before the Liquor Board before, he's been qualified as an expert before, and the question is, do you want me to go through all his qualifications?
Well, I'm familiar. I think it's really up to Ms. Schreckengoster. She'll consent to his being proffered as an expert.
Unfortunately, I do not know Mr. Arison,
Okay.
so if you could do some preliminary qualification, or at least provide me a copy of the CV, it might help me out a little bit.
I didn't bring one. I never bring a CV. Sorry about that.
All right, it'll just take a little bit more time, I think,
Okay.
Mr. Brown.
Okay.
I'm always somewhat reluctant to say that I've got a master's in urban and regional planning from the University of Virginia in Maryland, but I do. But I do have a master's.
Well respected.
Yeah.
I went to UVA, that's why I said that.
I do have a master's in urban regional planning from the University of Maryland. I've worked in 3 different localities. I've worked in local government planning for at least 30 years. I've had my own consultancy since, I think, 2016. I have testified before this board, before the hearing officer. I've also been recognized by the Board of Appeals, also the Liquor Board, Board of Appeals in the city of Annapolis, and I would be recognized by the Annapolis Planning Commission, but they don't recognize experts.
And Mr. Brown, what areas of designation do you plan to offer him as an expert?
Tell me, Mr. Harrison, what do you want, he's designated as, what have you been designated as before?
Land use zoning, impacts of development. I have been recognized by this board as an expert in demographics, but I would not put my skills up against Mr. Patno's.
He was also chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Anne Arundel County, city of Annapolis, for how many years?
I was planning director for the city of Annapolis for 19 years, I think.
I'd certify him as an expert, ask him certified expert in demographics, in urban development, in community need, because of his whole background, even traffic studies, but we're not going to traffic studies today.
I'm going to see if Ms. Schreckengost has any questions of Mr. Arison based on his testimony on his qualifications.
You said you want to introduce him for need, as a need expert? Need of what? It doesn't sound like anything in his background would qualify him as a need expert.
As a planning director for the city of Annapolis, he did that for 19 years. He was responsible. What were you responsible for when it came to putting restaurants in and other businesses in the city of Annapolis?
I was responsible for approval of all staff reports to Planning Commission for restaurants. I was responsible for everything that came out of the department, basically.
That include liquor stores?
That included liquor stores. That included anything that required permitting in the city.
So as a result of that, did you have to work with need and find out whether there's appropriate need, whether there are traffic issues, whether there are crime issues, and how it affected the community in general and the necessity
Yeah,
of need?
not just on liquor license, but also on special exceptions and plan developments and other such development and other such applications that were required to make that particular finding.
Ms. Schreckengost, do you have any questions of Mr. Arison based on his qualifications?
Give me 1 minute, please.
Sure.
I do have one quick question. Mr. Arison, did you do your own independent report for this hearing?
I did I did a report that was the basis of my outline for my presentation.
But you have, that report was not submitted as an exhibit to
No,
this
it was
board, is
not.
that correct?
Correct.
Mr. Arison, have you ever testified before any boards or this board regarding consumer patterns for respect to needs?
Consumer patterns? No.
I would object to any, I will, oh, I I do not disagree that he's not an expert. He can come in as an expert. I would have his expertise limited to anything that doesn't have to do with consumer patterns. I'm fine with
Okay.
land use, demographics, traffic.
Okay. What we'll do is we'll admit him as an expert. If there are specifics that you would like to object to during his testimony, you can do so, and then you'll have the opportunity to cross-examine him on any of those particular areas of expertise, if you will.
Thank you very
Okay?
much.
Thanks. Mr. Brown, we'll qualify Mr. Harrison as an expert. You can go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison, we asked you to do a study for 15 liquor store owners in the Serrano Park area. Is that correct?
Yes, you did.
And as a result of that, what did you do?
Well, the first thing I did was, of course, I looked at the Maryland Code requirements for a liquor license, just because I want to make sure I can remember all of them. But then what I did next is I went out and I visited the site. I looked at the other liquor stores in the area. I pulled census tract data for a 5-mile radius from the liquor store to try to determine what kind of population and household growth we've had between 2010 and the 2020 census. And I'll say that my numbers were very close to Mr. Padno's as it relates to his 10-minute drive time and what I tried to find within the 5-mile radius of the proposal.
Okay. And when you went and you checked the liquor stores, did you also have an opportunity to review Mr. Patno's report that they moved into evidence talking about the number of liquor stores within the 3 to 5 and the 10-minute range?
Yes, I did, between the last hearing and this one.
Okay, and based on that, did you come up with your own conclusions as to how many liquor stores there were within the 5-minute driving distance?
Within 5 minutes, and I pulled this data off of the Google Maps route data. We had Goska's was a 3-minute drive, according to this. I drove it in 2 minutes. The hardest part was turning left onto Robinson Road out of the parking lot. Dawson's was 3 minutes. Severna Park Wine and Spirits was 3 minutes. Harbor Wine and Spirits was 5 minutes. Magathy Wine and Spirits 4 minutes. Fish Paws 5 minutes. Brian Baru, which has an off license, was 3 minutes. And the C.C. Lippman's General Store was 5 minutes. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm not counting Brian Baru's, 7. And then with C.C. Lippman's, it was 5. That makes 8.
Okay, and Corwell's was how far away?
Corwell's was 6 minutes.
6 minutes. And that's what the Google said. Did you drive Corwell's or not?
No.
Okay, all right. But the others you checked out, and as you said, the most difficult thing of getting to some of the places was taking the left turn out of Robinson Road. Is that correct? Out of the shopping center onto Robinson Road.
Yes, that's correct. And I also have shopped at Clement's Hardware, and that's been awfully difficult to get out to at times.
Then I asked you if you would do some linear distance as a crow flies for some of those, didn't I?
Yes.
That's the email you sent me. You need it.
Yeah.
And I asked you to do some of them, and what did you find as far the distance to Brian Burroughs?
Objection, relevance.
It's overruled. Mr. Harrison, you can answer.
486 feet as the crow flies. Brian Bruce is across the street.
Okay. And how far was it from Goska's?
1,087 feet as the crow flies.
Okay. And how far to Severna Park Liquors?
2,500 feet.
Did you check any others?
No. Oh, I checked road distances, but not straight line distances.
Okay. All right. So therefore, you show more licenses in that 5-minute area than the applicant showed, correct?
Yes.
Now, did you also review the report from the perspective of that they are looking at this as a regional draw of retail purchases, in fact, that they want to go up to 30 miles away?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you therefore check out distances to other superstores in the area and where that 30 miles takes you?
30 miles from, well, Total Liquors is 17 miles away. The other, what I would consider regional store, would be the Costco, on North Dakota, or on South Dakota Avenue, which is actually 33 miles away, so it'd be just outside.
Now, Costco on South Dakota Avenue sells alcoholic beverages, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Okay, all right. And that's close to where the Sammy's on Bladensburg Road is where the other liquor store that their family owned for a while.
I know DC, it's close to Bladensburg Road. I'm not sure the exact location of Sammy's.
And when you took it the 30-mile radius, where does it take you to?
I took, let me see if I can find that. I don't know if I put the map in my notebook. Hold on a second, please. Well, I don't have that from here. 30 miles is actually quite a long distance. I took 30 miles from Total Wines, which is, like I said, about 17 miles away. And that 30 miles went to Kent Island. It went below Upper Marlboro. It went actually over into Alexandria. Around, so, and 30 miles is a big arc. And I would say that if you were to shift that 30-mile radius from Total, 17 miles to the right to 466 Ritchie Highway, this whole circle would shift, and you'd have much more of the eastern shore within that 30-mile radius.
Do you have that, you have a map that you did for the Total?
This is for Total.
That's the only copy of it you have?
Yeah, that's my
Let me
only
show it
copy.
to Miss Leanne.
And then I use Google Earth, and I use their ruler, to do the circle.
Yeah, we could go. It's a nice dense population.
I moved this in as exhibit, is this 10?
10.
I can
Commissioner
use
Costa,
count.
any objection?
No objection.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Brown, this is a 30-mile map?
30-mile map from Total,
Okay.
which shows the overlap at 17 distance, and that's why.
Okay. All right, thank you. That'll be admitted.
You have no personal knowledge as to whether or not Total draws people from 30 miles away, do you?
No.
You have no personal knowledge as to whether or not this store would draw people away from 30 miles, do you?
No.
But you do have the report prepared by Mr. Patnode, which says that this is a superstore and would draw people up to 30 miles away.
Correct.
Okay. All right. In doing the census and doing the numbers you saw for alcohol sales and all that, have you seen much of an increase in this area?
I can't answer that. I didn't really look at sales data.
Okay. So that's the area that you don't testify on, actual sales?
Correct.
Okay, good. Did you review the code section under 4210?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And under 4210, where it says that the factors in deciding whether to approve a license application, have you gone over those factors?
Yes, I have.
Do you have any concerns about this liquor store in relationship to those factors?
Well, yes, I do. The first goes to public need. I mean, we have a number of liquor stores that are very close together up in that part of Ritchie Highway. And as has been said, these are relatively small stores. I think that there's an issue here in terms of what the law wants us to look at. I look at what the law wants us to look at, but it talks about the number of stores, and I don't know whether or not ultimately it contemplated the size of stores and the amount of square footage devoted to liquor stores in an area as opposed to just the absolute number of stores. A 22,000 square foot liquor store is a significant increase in the amount of, let's just say, shelf space devoted to the sales of alcohol in this area. And I don't think that that's, the size of this is something that really can be overlooked in making a determination about the public need for this, especially when there are so many liquor stores up and down Ritchie Highway and off to the sides of it right now. The other thing that I think that is important is that there are also a number of restaurants with off licenses. So there are opportunities for those places to also sell wine and beer and spirits. If you look at the 5 closest stores to this proposal, they have less square footage than this one store. So that's, and I think that that's an important aspect to keep in your mind while you're making deliberations on this, is that there's a lot of new liquor sales in there, even though it's one store.
Now, you've seen the article in the paper about Cafe Britannia opening up as a beer garden, correct?
I've seen a copy of it, yes.
Okay. And that isn't included anywhere in their list of liquor stores, was it?
No.
Okay. And you know that the Brass Rail is remodeling and opening up based on information we gave to you, correct?
Based on information that was given me, yes.
And that's not included in their list of licenses, is it?
No.
Objection. Just testifying to facts, not in evidence.
Mr. Brown?
He's an expert. He can testify to where he got information, just so he discloses where that information came from.
That'll be overruled. If he knows the answer, he can answer out of his own personal knowledge.
Any other sections under, I call it 10204, but it's 4210, even though it's the same
Right.
numbers, reversed a little bit. Under 4210 of the new code sections, any other concerns that you would have? For example,
There's a couple of things I'd just like to bring up. I know that this report has shown that there has been some growth in population in the census tracts. That, I found that as well. But I looked at data from the Baltimore Metropolitan Council that was originally compiled by Maryland Department of Transportation. Traffic on Ritchie Highway in front of this at Robinson Road, automobile traffic, truck traffic, has remained relatively constant since 2010. It's not like there's been a significant growth in drive-by traffic going back in front of this that might warrant another liquor store to take advantage of drive-by traffic. It was also pretty much the same traffic on Robinson Road that it's remained fairly constant. The last data that I had on that was 2018, so it was pre-pandemic. So I'm just telling you the dates so that you know that the dates that the traffic remain relatively the same. So it's not like they can capture a lot of new cars, a lot of new people that are driving by that particular shopping center. I also feel that as it relates to the impact, the intersection of Robinson Road and Ritchie Highway at PM peak period, it's level of service E.
is level of service what?
E.
E, is that E for excellent?
No, that's E for my undergraduate grades.
I hope not in this area.
Not in this area.
I like the way you said undergraduate.
I only qualified as based on my master's, not my undergraduate. So, and I'll just point out that there's been a lot of talk about the regional draw of this. So basically, what the
Excuse me a minute. When you said the intersection is rated an E, as in Edward,
yes,
what does that mean?
that means it's failing. A is the top level of service. E and F means it's a failing intersection.
Okay, thank you.
And that's, based upon modeling and traffic counting and all that. But we talk about, a regional draw to this area. So basically what the applicant is proposing is to bring in people from Kent Island into an already congested intersection, an already congested part of town. There was no data on the Robinson Road crossing. The data is only for through movements on Ritchie Highway at that light, but that's a fairly low level of service. I'll also point out that between Robinson Road and the entry to the shopping center, it's about 375 feet. There are three intervening curb cuts. One is for Clements, one is for Walgreens, and one is for a car wash. So there's a lot of turning movements into and onto Robinson Road trying to get out to Ritchie Highway. And the applicant, through wanting to have a regional use, a regional draw, just wants to bring more cars into that already what I would consider a fairly congested area. So I think when you look at the factors in deciding an application that are in 4210, it's just not, those findings can't be made, in my opinion. And in the end, I think that given the number of stores, given how close they are, I mean, you've got 177 Liquors is 10 minutes away. John's Liquors, 13 minutes. Port Tack, 12 minutes. Grand Ritchie. And if you go 15 minutes on the 15-minute map, you're at the liquor store in the Walgreens at Taylor Avenue in Annapolis. I mean,
The one across from the State Police Barracks?
yeah. I mean, you're that far down that you're starting impacting liquor stores within the city limits, theoretically, anyway, just based upon the applicant's drawings. So I just don't see how adding 20,000 square feet of liquor sales in this area is necessary or warranted.
You were here for Mr. Kirzoglos. Am I pronouncing your name right, Jimmy? Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay. His testimony, because he used to work for a liquor distributor, and the fact that he was around when Total came in, and he explained that there were, and from his perspective, there were no additional sales. It was just that the sales were coming from the other places. Were you here for that testimony?
Yes.
So based on that testimony and your knowledge on the amount of liquor stores here, do you think that this liquor license would have an adverse effect upon the other liquor stores in the area?
Objection. He's testifying to economic analysis, which he is indicating he's not an expert for.
Mr. Brown?
I don't know. He's testifying as to what Mr. Kirzoglo testified from his personal experience, explained that he was in charge of all the stores out there, that the stores, the smaller stores were starting to suffer, and the same amount of liquor sales came out of everything. But a lot was going into Total, so it was taken away from the others. That's one of the issues that the board already has that from Mr. Kirzoglo, and it's one of the issues that you have to look at under 4210. And with his experience and based on the background, I think it's a logical connection. So if you think that's an expert opinion and he can't give, I'll honor the board's decision. But I don't see how it would not be.
Yeah, I think the question was about the adverse impact, and I'll allow him to testify as to what his consideration of an adverse impact would be. Obviously, you'd have the right to cross-examine based on your expert's opinion as well. So we'll overrule it. Mr. Harrison, you can answer.
Well, based upon that testimony, you know, it's like you go to a pizza place and they ask if you want to cut it into 8 pieces or 12 pieces, and you say, well, cut it into 8. I could never eat 12. So basically what you're doing is you're taking the pizza based upon that testimony and that testimony alone and the experience up around Total, that, you know, the size of the pie stayed the same. It's just the pieces got smaller so they could go around to more people. And to me, that is an adverse impact on existing licenses, which is part of the 4210 findings.
By the way, as a planning director in the city of Annapolis, you had an opportunity to review traffic studies and traffic impact studies to see where traffic would come from, correct?
I not only reviewed them, I had them prepared under my direction. I also sat for almost 30 years on the Baltimore Regional Transportation Board and chaired it for a number of years, too, back in the 90s.
Now, based on that, now, Anne Arundel County has already said this property is zoned for this use, okay? But when they do traffic impact studies and they look at the effect of traffic on an area, how far out do they go? How many lights do they usually go to? What do they look at? Do they look 30 miles away to see how many people are coming from 30 miles and how it impacts the traffic?
No. What you typically do is go to the ITD, Institute of Traffic Engineers Traffic Trip Generation Manual, and just try to figure out how many trips a particular use is going to generate.
So,
And you look, you know, every traffic impact study is different because every site is different. So you just try to use common sense and say, we're going to go out so many intersections and look at it. And you try to come to some kind of consensus to do that.
now, I asked the applicant a couple times if he thought this was a regional center, and he asked me, what do I mean by regional? In your opinion, is this a regional center?
No, it's a neighborhood center. I mean, typically, a regional center is anchored by a department store, too. A neighborhood center typically is anchored by a grocery store, and then it's got personal service uses in it. It's got some small shops. This is really a neighborhood center.
So Arundel Mills and Waugh Chapel would be considered basically regional centers?
Yeah, they could be considered regional. Actually, by some definitions, and I don't know the square footages, the shopping center across the street, because it has a Kohl's and a Giant, might be considered a small regional center, but based upon the mixture of uses, you might consider that regional. But a shopping center that's anchored by a grocery store, and like I said, with personal service uses, there's some, a couple of small restaurants, there's a bigger restaurant there. I mean, it's really a neighborhood center, by definition.
And it appears, based on the stores in there, even though there's an Aldi's in there, that this is a neighborhood center. Is that correct? With a childcare facility, with local restaurants, with the
Yeah.
dollar store or the green, I can never remember which one.
It's a Dollar General.
Dollar General. So this is a neighborhood, is that correct?
Yeah, it's a neighborhood store,
And you have
neighborhood
a car
shopping
wash
center.
there, and Clements across the street. So this is, you wouldn't think that this center was built for purposes of regional use?
A regional draw? No, it's just another, basically, strip center up and down Route 2.
So you find that there's no need for this center, this applicant in the strip center on Robinson Road?
Yes, I do.
And you looked at the cases out there, including the Quan case, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Brian? I don't know if you're prepared to testify to 4210B, Section V at the bottom, 5, which says, license is issued, the operation authorized by the licensee would unduly disturb the peace of the residents of the neighborhood of the location described in the application. Do you have any opinion on that, or is that beyond your expertise or within your expertise?
Well, the shopping's up Robinson Road are neighborhoods, and any additional congestion on Robinson Road based upon a use is going to have a negative impact on the neighborhood.
So you believe that this application, if granted, would have a negative impact upon the health, safety, and welfare of the community?
Yes.
No further questions.
All right, thank you. Ms. Schreckengast.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arison, you indicated that you did not do a formal report to be submitted to this board, correct?
No, I did not. The way I think, I have to write like a report that I can base my
Completely understand.
testimony on.
Now, is it, in your experience as a planner, is it commonplace to locate liquor stores next to a grocery store?
It's common to locate liquor stores all over the place. I mean, I know liquor stores, well, it's done, but it's also not done.
Can you tell me the significance of the linear distance in a demand analysis
You mean from one store?
from one location to another?
I think it's just a question of saying that you've got liquor stores nearby. And if you have nearby liquor stores, why do you need another one?
Fair enough. You mentioned the number of stores around this location. Did you look at any data to show how many stores were around the Total Wine in Laurel?
No, I didn't. I was just looking at the distances because that was a superstore. And we mentioned that this proposal would like to be a superstore. And the draw was 30 miles. If this application were up around Total, I'm sure I would have looked at liquor stores up around Total.
Would it surprise you to know that there's 14 locations around the Total in Laurel within a 3-mile radius and only 9 within the 3-mile radius at this location?
Would it surprise me? No.
So you're saying traffic has remained constant in this area, correct?
According to the data that I received from, that I looked at from the Baltimore Metropolitan Council.
Now, you said you also read Dr. Patno's report, correct?
Yes.
And his report, do you disagree with his report that this location is a regional draw or would be because of the size of it?
I'm not going to disagree with that particular finding, no.
And would you, I'll withdraw that
And some of the basis of my concerns about neighborhood impacts has to do with the fact that it is a regional draw.
And that's the key. The area is regional, so not the shop.
question. Right. Now,
But I also think that with gas up around $4.50 a gallon, it's a little bit hard to define what the regional draw is going to be,
agreed at this point in
which
time.
would then more impact the existing stores, I think.
Is the Ritchie Highway corridor known as the regional economic hub?
It's a regional hub, yeah.
And you talked about the grade of E for the traffic light outside of the shopping
Right.
center, correct?
Correct.
Now, isn't it true that no matter what tenant goes in there, that grade is not changing? Like, it was a grade E before, when Giant was there, and it's a grade E now, and that's really not something before this liquor board, is it? Isn't that a
thought she-
planning and zoning issue?
I thought she was objecting to him testifying into uses by individuals and patterns.
Yeah, he testified about grade E, that was not only the grades that he got in undergrad, but also the grades for the particular location. So I think he can testify if he knows.
Without significant improvements to that intersection, it's going to stay at a level of service E, or maybe be degraded. But that is a commercial space, and any commercial use that goes in there is going to impact the public streets.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Brown, any redirect?
So I need to rehabilitate you at all? He did a good job.
I did get into grad school.
Anything else, Mr. Brown?
No, just the $4.50 a gallon for gas is what bothers me, so.
Take judicial notice of that, for sure. Mr. Chairman, any questions of Mr. Harrison?
Indeed, I do. You had mentioned within the market area, there were 8 establishments within a 5-minute drive time. Is
I
that
believe I
correct?
did. Yes, sir.
And then you mentioned there are a few more out there, but you didn't specifically mention how many would be there within a 10-minute drive. Do you have that information?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Well, let me just run down the ones that are up and down the highway. I had 177 Liquors at 10 minutes, John's Liquors at 13, Marketplace at 11, Port Tack at
Okay.
12.
Hold on.
I got an E in math, but anyway, just all I need to know. All I need to know is the number
Okay.
that are in.
Well, I typically don't do math publicly, but I'll give it
Okay.
a shot here.
Well, maybe by the time we leave, you could have it for me.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6? Okay. And then 15 minutes?
I just,
Mr. Chairman, that's 6 in addition to the others, you know that?
Yes.
Okay, just
Yep.
to make sure.
Oh, yeah.
We're not adding yet, but we will.
No.
I
Well, you'd be going down.
It depends.
didn't go to 15. I just happened to notice on the 15-minute
Okay.
map that it went down to the Walgreens on Taylor Avenue.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
I have just one question, and that is in reference to 4210 section. You indicated that the reason why there was adverse impact upon other stores, but you did not say anything in reference to the size of the store in and of itself, although you indicated that the size of the store didn't make an impact. And I just want clarity on what did you mean by the size of the store in reference to an adverse impact?
Sure. The way the law reads now, the 4210, it just talks about the number of stores. You know, sales of anything are based upon square footage devoted to the sale of that particular item. So
Understand.
if you have a 2,000 square foot store, you have X number of square feet devoted to the sale of liquors, plus you've got storage and checkouts. If say, this store is bigger than the closest 5 stores, then what you've done is you haven't just added one store, you've doubled the amount of floor space in the area devoted to the sale of wine, beer, and spirits. And that's the point that I was trying to get at, is that you have dropped something huge in the middle there, and now there's twice as much ability for sales or competition for sales for this particular commodity.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Duffy?
It answered my question, but at the same time, 410 also, 4210 also addressed in reference to related crime areas, and not in particular the size and square feet of the store. And his store was talking about 20,000 square feet. And I understand what you were saying about the adverse impact, but it also addresses how it relates to criminal activity also in 4210. So do you feel that it's going to increase in reference to crime activities?
I honestly don't see why it would.
Okay. I'm just wanted to make clear that 4210 addresses everything.
Right, a number
not
of-
just that is now based upon square footage.
Right, no, I understand.
And the impact.
And
all
thank you for that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Snoops, do you have any questions at this time? No. Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman, do you have any?
I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
It goes back to my earlier question within the market area, particularly the 5-minute drive time. One report is telling us there's 8, and the other report is saying there's 4. So I just wondered maybe where those discrepancies are. In addition to that, there's only, in the 10-minute drive, there's 6 on one report and then 5 on another. So we definitely have a little discrepancy, and I just wondered if you wanted to address that.
I can only say that I did the Google map
Okay.
thing and took the times off of that. And that was today, probably around 1 o'clock. Now, if I were to do that drive during the morning rush hour, it might take a little bit longer.
Sure.
You know, if I wanted to really make our case look good, I would have done it at 2 in the morning. And then we would have had a whole bunch that were within 5 minutes, but, you know, we just sort of picked a random time, you know, which was today.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison, what time today did you say you did that? Just for the record.
In the afternoon.
Okay, afternoon,
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
No, it was a little bit later than that.
Listmans you had in there too?
What's that?
Did you have Listmans?
Yeah.
They,
CC Listman.
just so they did not have Listmans in their list. It's a license, it's approved. It's
Right.
And they didn't have that in their list. That was one of them they didn't have. They didn't have Brian Borough in their list because it's a Class B carryout license across the street. And they didn't, and we didn't, I don't even think we put in there Cafe Britannia, which is opening, which would be another one. And I don't think the Brass Rail was one that we put in.
And I think you questioned Mr. Patnode on that
Yes.
at the last hearing.
And he was unaware of those, that's why,
Gotcha.
yes.
Okay.
I hope that explains it, the ones that we put in that weren't there that are
Okay.
existing licenses.
And I was just on your side,
Do you want to? Yeah.
just,
Mr. Patton, since it's your first time speaking this evening, could you please state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, Gerald Patnode.
I'm sorry, Ms. Schreckengoss, the mic turned off.
Mine should be.
Oh, yours is on. I'm sorry, it was blocked by the chair.
I'm sorry.
Apologies.
Yeah, okay. Gerald Patnode, 497 Heritage Drive, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Mr. Patno, could you please address Chairman Maloney's questions regarding the locations listed in your report?
Yes, I noticed when he was doing his report, he had several that were on the fringe of 5 miles. So depending on the way, if you can Google Maps, I was using a geographic information system. It's quite possible that those ones that he had at the fringe of 5, I kicked over into greater than 5. So it's, not exact science. I wouldn't say that he was contradicting me or I was contradicting him. It's the way the system
Okay,
drew him up.
So-
just wanted to get a clarification. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions from the commissioners at this time of Mr. Harrison? Mr. Brown, anything you'd like to add based on those questions? Any additional questions of your expert?
Does the fact that they have 6 cash registers shown on their diagram, and most stores have 2, tell you anything about the amount of volume they expect to get in that store, which goes to your traffic impact and things of that nature?
Well, that just all goes to the size of the store and its regular liquor store equivalency. You might have liquor store equivalency unit up there is 3,000 square feet, and this is like 7 equivalencies. But, most liquor stores, in my experience, have, a couple of cash registers, and they've got 6. So there just goes to a liquor store equivalency of maybe 3 stores. It's a big store.
And the storage, we talked earlier, and there was a question on it, you talked about the square footage and that you use a part of the store for square footage, for storage and things of that nature. With the height of the ceilings here and the way you've seen the pictures of what they stack on top, is it fair to say that they won't need as much square footage for storage and they will use more of it for retail?
Objection.
Yeah, I'm going to sustain that objection.
That's stretching, wasn't it?
Try.
You never do that.
I was prepared to say that.
I stretched that one. My apologies. That won't keep us beyond 10, though, I promise.
I'm sorry, Mr. Brown, do you have anything else?
Pardon me?
Do you have anything else?
Not for Mr. Harrison.
Mr. Eckengast,
I do
anything
not.
else? Okay. Thank you all.
Thanks, John. You've already been sworn in, right? Yes. So state your name and your address for the record.
Okay, Kevin Chase, 1004 Poplar Avenue, Annapolis, Maryland.
They may not have heard your name, your complete name.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chase.
Kevin Chase.
You're going to have to get really close to the mic. I understand you're wearing a mask. I don't know if we can move the mic over and you can.
There you go.
Kevin Chase,
And spell your last name.
Chase.
Okay. Right. And do you have any involvement in the liquor stores in the Severna Park area?
Yes, I'm the licensee and part owner of Magathy Wine and Spirits.
Okay, and Magathy Wine and Spirits received their license in 2017, is that correct?
Correct.
And did you apply for a license up there originally that was denied?
Yes, there was an application that was denied.
And do you remember why it was denied?
They decided there wasn't a need.
Okay. Did there come a time, though, when you came back and you made a different application?
Yes, our next application was to assume the license from Victoria's Fancy Foods.
So Victoria was on the left-hand side as you're going north on Ritchie Highway in what used to be called the First Mariners Plaza, where First Mariners Bank used to be, where Heavenly Hams is, and things. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And Victoria's was a place in there that had a liquor license, correct?
Yes,
And Victoria's went out of business, correct?
correct.
So after you lost your first application, because there wasn't a need in the area, did you get it granted when Victoria's went out of business? After?
After she went out of business.
Okay, all right. And so do you believe when you came in there, you tried to argue need, and the board back then said there was no need for you until Victoria, that one other license became available. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my view of it, yes.
Okay, all right. And do you believe there's a need for a 22,000 square foot store? By the way, how far are you away from the store, driving time?
4 to 5 minutes.
Okay, and you're 1.7 miles away?
I think so. I have not had the course to measure it lately.
Okay, all right. But it's a 4 to 5 minute drive, and you're one of the ones that are north of this site rather than south like most of the others, correct?
Correct.
All right. And do you believe this will have a negative impact upon your business?
Yes, we do.
Why?
It's a very large store, and with a, you know, it's going to have a lot of product, and it's right in the middle of an already congested type of market, in my opinion.
Anything else you want to say?
Not really. I'll look forward to my other questions.
That's giving you some credit. I hope you know. So, I have no further questions.
Ms. Schreckengost?
Wait, what? No. Would it surprise you, or do you have a copy of this board's ruling from your approval?
No.
Well, I've submitted it to the board, so I will let the board have it for their, I will tell you that there's no mention of Victoria's Fancy's closing as one of the rationale for them granting you the license. Would that surprise you?
Yes, because I remember sitting here when we tried to assume their license, and there was a technicality that had been revoked. Then when we came back in, there was a lot of discussions about the first license being rejected, and how the second, Victoria's license going away, changed the need pattern for the area.
All right, thank you for that.
I mean,
Were you one of the businesses that collected signatures on the petitions?
yes, they did.
Would it surprise you to learn that there were duplications and errors and discrepancies within those petitions?
I think that anytime you do petitions, no matter if it's for something like this, or for a ballot initiative, or for an election, there's always going to be some discrepancies. People don't remember that they wrote their name down.
Did you happen to check the ID of every person that signed the petition?
I was not directly involved in collecting them. It was the staff of the store.
Okay. I have nothing further at this point.
All right, Mr. Chairman, any questions of Mr. Chase?
Yeah, I do. Do you remember what year you first applied for a license? You were granted in 2017.
It was the year before.
Year before? Thank you. No other question.
Commissioner Duffy, any questions of Mr. Chase?
No question.
Commissioner Snoops? No. All right. Mr. Brown, anything else?
I'd just like to thank you guys for your service. I sit on a commission too, so thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
No further questions.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Oh, you've already been sworn, but state your name and give your business address for the record so that they know who you are, and spell your last name because they may have problems.
Ron Corwell, Corwell. I own a liquor store at 170 Baltimore Annapolis Boulevard in Severna Park, Maryland, 21146.
How far is your liquor store away from
1.6 miles.
1.6 miles? And how long has your liquor store been there?
The building was built in the early 1950s. It was a hardware store that sold beer from small cooler in the back and pints and half pints, which I have pictures of the progression of the store if you would like them.
You came today to testify, and you brought some stuff with you.
Yes.
Tell us what you believe about this application and what concerns you have.
I just believe, you know, the expert, as he stated, a slight need in his report, and they're trying to put a 22,000 square foot store, which another gentleman has said is going to fit 4 or 5 or more of our stores in there. My store's 2,100 square feet. What is the business potential this store has to do in order to make money to break even? What he has to take from us in order to break even before he even turns a dollar? Is he going to be prepared to bring a business from 30 miles away for this and all that traffic? I don't think so. I personally believe you do most of your business within 3 to 5 miles of your location is where you draw from.
Now, your sales, that was a question. Wait a minute. How many square feet is your store, 2,100?
2,100. Yes.
And how have your sales been this past year compared to the past 2 years?
Well, this year we're down. Previously, however, obviously 2020 we're up Last year, I was flatlined only because, as I will present in here, I had my building refaced from the outside, which I spent over $100,000 on, and made it look, well, had gable signs do it, and
How many
made it
copies of this you have?
4 or 5.
Let me pass one down, Sue. Down.
And I basically told Gable Signs I don't want women to be afraid to come in the store, and they knocked it out of the park. I had new rock walls, sconce lightings, new awnings, new logos, signs, and everything.
Now, the first picture there is a picture of the store where it was back in the 50s or so?
Yes,
Okay. And then as you go through, it shows you progression of the store and what's happened there?
yes,
Okay. And so, as you said, this year, last year you're flatlined,
yes,
and this year you're down?
down.
Okay. And what is your concern if they come in and open this? Well, this store will be 10 times the size of your store.
Yes, it'll be 10 times the size of my store, and just like anything, their expert says that they have bulk buyers. We have bulk buyers, you know? I mean, this store has to take business from our existing stores in order to stay alive. With 21,000 square feet, what is their rent going to be? You know, what's their overhead going to be? $100,000 a month with payroll and everything else? They have to take business, a ton of business from us, and I don't believe the area is going to be drivable for it to sustain 30 miles away. Obviously, Total Wine is 17 miles. If they're drawing business from 30 miles away, they're in competition then. They have to try to take business from them. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I just think they're going to draw more business from the local than anything else.
How much of your store space is dedicated to storage?
I guess 500 square feet, I don't know,
So about 25% of the store?
probably.
Okay, and you've seen their pictures of their
His storage area, actually, I saw it, his storage area is the size of my store. I think it was 2,000 square feet, from what I remember him saying in the previous,
So you can fit your whole store at his
in his
storage area.
storage space.
Anything else you want to tell the board before they ask you any questions?
No, I mean, just personally, I just believe that, I mean, a slight need is something that is, oh yeah, put another liquor store, maybe our size in, but when you're talking about putting a store 10 size, or even 5 or 6 times the size of the average store in the area, it just doesn't make sense for a slight need of what their experts said. It doesn't say, you would figure if this store of 21,000 square feet, he would be using words like, it's grossly underwhelmed in liquor stores around, or there's a dire need for stores in this area. His exact words were slight need for a store in the area, and you're trying to put a 21,000 square foot store there.
Now, you were here for Mr. Kyriazaglos's testimony last time, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you heard his testimony that when the distributors come out, they offer the same deal to everybody.
Yes.
Okay? Now, based upon the size of your store and the size of your stores, can you take advantage of those discounted sales in order to sell them on a regular basis?
No. I mean, Smirnoff half gallons alone have a 100-case deal for the best, 100-case deal for the best price. Tito's is a 50-case deal. Captain Morgan's a 50-case deal. I mean, it goes on and on from there. Bacardi's a 25-case deal. It just keeps going on and on. That's not to mention all the wines, you know, 1.5s of Yellowtail, Barefoot, and all that. Those are 50-case deals, you know. We have to pick and choose. This guy's going to be able to buy everything and have a price advantage.
By the way, just so the board's aware, when you say a 100-case deal, a 50-case deal, do you mean that in order to get a discounted price, you have to buy a minimum of 50 cases or a minimum 100 cases?
Yes.
And then the price goes down, correct?
Yes.
Which means then you can undercut the other people in the neighborhood, correct?
Yes.
So you can sell your alcohol for less than what other people are able to sell
Yes.
for. And you cannot take advantage of that as a small store, is that correct?
No.
Is that because of space, or is it because of volume, or is it because of money? What is it, or all of it?
Space. I'd love to have a 21,000 square foot store too. I mean, we buy those deals and make money, but you know, it's just no one around here does, and it'll just cut everybody out.
You consider yourself a neighborhood store?
Yes, my grandfather built my building. My father took it. He ran it till '86. My father took it over from '86 to '98 when I bought it.
No further questions.
It looks great, by the way.
Thank
The
you.
improvements are very nice.
Ms. Schreckengast, before you get started, Mr. Brown, do you want that
No, we
into
need this
evidence
in
as
exhibit.
11? Okay. Ms. Schreckengast, do you have any objection over the?
Not at all.
Okay, all right. That'll be admitted as
11?
opponent's 11. Sorry, Ms. Schreckengast, go right ahead.
Oh, thank you very much. Do you live in Anne Arundel County?
Yes,
And have you ever had any violations at your store?
yes.
You indicated that you cannot expand. Have you ever looked into getting an individual storage permit
Objection. Relevance.
Overruled. Go ahead, Ms. Schreckengast.
to expand your space so you can take advantage of some of the big case discounts?
Well, yeah, the problem is, you just don't have the floor space to display everything. His store, if he has 2,100 square feet of storage, he's going to have 19,000 or 2,000 square feet for products, to be displayed for the customers. We just don't have that. And you multiply that by tens of thousands of products.
You indicated that your sales are down this year or flat.
Down this year, yes.
Is that obviously compared to last year with COVID, correct?
Well, 2 years ago was COVID, but my building was done right at the end of COVID, so everyone was coming and checking out the store because the outside of the building was just done. So this year, we're down.
Based on, you're down from the COVID numbers?
Yes.
Okay. I have, are there any further questions?
Mr. Brown?
None for me. Board has any?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I've got one question. You talked about a 100-case deal. I think, did you say Smirnoff had a 100-case deal?
Yeah, Smirnoff has a 100-case deal.
Typically, what would that discount be? Do you know off the top of your head?
So I think I want to say 25-case deal is almost $17, and it's like an extra $1 off for the 100-case deal.
Okay, so you're getting a dollar off a case? Is that?
Well, if you're case one, you're probably at $19, but if you buy the 25-case deal, you're at 16 something. If you buy the 100-case deal, you're at
Here you go with that math again.
$15.99.
Yeah.
They have more than one quantity deal.
Okay,
So they
but
might
the
have a
100
case
case,
one,
let's say-
5, yeah, but most stores can't buy the 20-case deal. Most stores are buying the 5-case deal at, say, $18.
I understand that most can't.
Yeah.
But the ones they offer you for 100, what would that be if you know off the top of your head?
For Smirnoff,
Yeah,
I believe $16.
$16 off a
Even.
case.
No, per bottle.
Okay.
I don't know what it is
Okay.
off
I'm just
the
trying.
actual case one.
Okay. Thank you.
Kim says $3 off.
Okay.
So,
Three-
$3 off of
Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
15%.
No questions.
Commissioner Snoops, any questions?
I just have one question. You said your sales are flat now?
Down this year.
Down after COVID. So are they back to where they were before COVID?
No, because I redid my building.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, that's why, as you can see from
Caused a little
before and after
disruption,
pictures,
yeah.
we've gotten many compliments as she
Yeah, it looks good.
has, so.
Okay.
Let me hitchhike on that question. I think she mentioned sales, or your sales down. Obviously, you had to put money into the store, came out of profits, but what about the total sales number?
That's what I'm
Is
talking
it
about.
back where you were pre-COVID?
It's below,
Okay.
back to going below COVID numbers.
Okay.
COVID was crazy time,
Gotcha.
so they're down.
All right, thank you.
Let me ask that a different way if you don't mind. Pre-COVID numbers, where are you today compared to the pre-COVID numbers?
Pre-COVID, I'm up a little bit because of the renovation of my building.
And you said earlier that it would be $16. That normal bottle of Smirnoff, it sells for $19?
Yes,
So if you can buy the bigger cases, you're talking over a 15% discount, $3 off of 19.
yeah, you're talking $3 a bottle times 6 bottles, $18 times 100,
So that's
$1,800.
That's per case. So it's not per bottle, not per case. So if you have 6 bottles in a case, you're talking $18 difference on a case.
Yes,
That's sizable, isn't it?
yes.
No further questions.
Ms. Schreckengast?
I have one follow-up question. When you renovated your location, did you consider going up So you had more
County-
storage in?
So years ago, we looked into it, and the county wanted, my pictures don't show it, but I am directly on 648. There's no curbs and everything. We looked into going back. I have an acre of property there. They wanted me to curb the whole entire 648 area and landscape it and curb 10, I believe 10 yards in. So you have to turn into a road and then into the building, and that would take away from convenience. I mean, my store has a turnaround where boats and trailers can go all the way around the building,
So if you wanted to extend your shelving up, you were going to have to do all that?
expand the building in general.
Oh, but I
we
mean,
would
if you
have
just
to-
kept the footprint where it was and went up, could you have done that?
Another level?
No, like on top of your shelves, could you have gotten rid of, like, it looks like you have a drop ceiling? Could you have taken the drop ceiling
No,
out and
no.
expanded your
No.
storage?
No.
I have nothing further.
Nothing back.
All right, great.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
As to our direct presentation, I know there's a lot of people here, but I'll let them speak, therefore we can keep them to 2 minutes, rather than me asking them 15 minutes of questions.
Okay,
But that would be our direct presentation.
okay. Do you have any rebuttal testimony that you'd like to do at this time before we go to the public?
Do you want to do it now, or do you want to wait till after the public speaks? Well, I'll go ahead and
Okay,
do, I actually have two rebuttal witnesses.
okay.
I mean,
Let's do that now before we get to the members of the public.
Start with Dr. Patnode again.
All right, Dr. Patnode, you took the oath again today?
I did.
Okay, if you could just give us your name. Oh, you already gave us your
I
name and
did,
address. I
yep.
forgot. Yep, sorry. Go right ahead.
And Dr. Patnode, there was discussion from Mr. Harrison regarding Total Wine and he didn't have any personal knowledge on Total Wine and the numbers and all that. For getting tongue-tied, apologies. You have personal knowledge with respect to Total Wine, is that correct?
Yes, I've worked with Total Wine on several projects, yeah.
And in your report, when you talk about it being a region, this location being a regional draw and drawing from 30 miles, can you tell the board where that knowledge comes from?
Actually, both our locations, we did a customer surveys in terms of where people were coming in from to purchase, so we had a sense of their draw within the area. And so, for example, in the Towson store, they routinely draw from York, Pennsylvania, and the one down here in Laurel was drawing up into Ellicott City, over to Columbia. So the draw was pretty substantial, and that's where I was getting my 25 to 30 mile range.
Thank you very much. And you heard testimony about the typical customers of liquor stores are usually within 3 to 5 miles or 3 to 5 minute drive time, correct?
That's correct.
Why is this different?
Well, the owner was absolutely correct that the typical store does draw 3 to 5 miles. This is different in that the profile of people who are routinely shopping at Total and superstores such as this is that they tend to not be coming for their weekly purchases. They're coming for because they're buying for events, their parties, they're doing picnics, the holidays, and that's why I made the comment that they're generally coming in and buying in bulk. You'll see people going through, they have shopping carts, and so they're filling their shopping carts up, and so the typical purchase is not like you would find in the daily routine of local liquor stores, and so the draw tends to be for people who are buying for those type of occasions. It's a different market segment.
You also heard testimony from the owner that, oh my goodness. That fast, it went right out of my head. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I apologize, Commissioners, bear with me for 1 second. That's what it was, apologies. There was testimony from the owner that he talked about volume discounts and getting the volume discounts.
Right.
In your experience with Total Wine,
Right.
do they typically take full advantage of those volume discounts that they're able to get from buying in bulk?
Objection. Wait a minute. How can he be an expert on marketing for Total Wine? How can he testify as to when they took advantage of marketing and buying the things? And that's not what he's here on. He's not talking about how much alcohol they buy and what the volume is, if they take advantage of them. You'd have to be a management person who's seen all the figures in order to do that.
Do you have knowledge of all, of the sales of
I
Total
do
Wine
have
and
some
the
knowledge
purchases?
of their operating procedures and
Do you-
policies, yes.
Well, if you know, you can testify to it, but I don't want you to opine as to how much you think they're buying, how much you think
Oh,
they're selling.
I can't tell you, well, I can tell you what their annual sales are, but I won't disclose that. But they do in fact take advantage of buying the discounts, but as a general rule, they do not discount in price. They enjoy the margins. They keep their
That
products.
I object to.
Understood. It'll be overruled. You can
Totally
cross-examine on it if he
okay.
doesn't, if you don't think he has knowledge of it.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Brown?
Couple questions. In your report on my mark, page 4, you said that the nature of this shopping area provides for a regional draw of retail purchase activity.
Yes.
But what you're really saying is by putting this store in here, you're going to create a regional draw.
No, what I was alluding to is that this whole corridor is a regional area. This particular shopping center, as you have alluded, is not a regional shopping center.
That's right.
Okay, but then why, and I didn't say center, I was talking about the whole corridor of the region is in fact, and in fact, your expert even validated that when he was asked, is this an economic hub, a regional economic hub, and that's what I was referring to, so yes.
How many red lights are there between Annapolis and Glen Burnie?
Oh, I have no idea.
Well, let's look at Total Wine. They're close to a highway where people can get there fast without red lights and without congested traffic. Isn't that correct?
That's true.
Okay, so therefore, where you put these other places, they have better access by main roads, 4-lane highways, 8-lane highways coming into them, and you're talking about a small community in Severna Park here where you're going to be congestive in there rather than the access by highway. So isn't that really where regional comes in? The fact that they have better access through roads, and if you're off of a 95, you're off of an interstate, or you're off of something like that, that's what creates the regional hub.
Well, what's created the regional hub is all the existing retail that's already there in the area in which it draws from. So the area already substantially draws from a pretty broad area.
How many people from Annapolis drive to Severna Park to go to Chick-fil-A? None.
None, probably.
Okay.
None.
How many go to the Shell station up there? None. Or to Homestead Gardens, or to Zachary's. These are all local people that go to those places, right?
I would not disagree.
But at Total Wine and the places around Total, they have a highway access, a system in there that allows people to get there faster, don't they?
They do have access to 95 and...
So therefore, you can't even argue with what Mr. Harris has said about an e-failing of those highway system up there.
I'm not a traffic expert, so I couldn't have testified anything on that.
So therefore, if you are bringing in the traffic you anticipate bringing in, and it's already at an E level, what's going to happen to those highways around there, the residents around there, the kids getting off the school buses, and the kids walking to their jobs from the high school over to there?
It wouldn't be any different than if you put in a large super giant or a grocery store or any other large box retailer would have the same impact.
And there's no others up there, are there? Because of the impact, because they can't pass the traffic study.
That I can't attest
Okay,
to.
let's go a little bit. Those are the roads. That's the regional draw. You say that people shop at Total Wine and they come in with carts and they fill them up with their alcohol, right?
Typically, they'll use a shopping cart type thing,
So,
yes.
but for Total Wine shopping carts and filling up, they'd be buying at the local stores, wouldn't they?
I do not believe so.
Well, so where would they go? Where would they go? You've got a Total Wine 17 miles away.
Total Wine's draw is the selection, the wide variety selection that they have available that you cannot find in, I know what you would say, everybody can have everything else, but the total breadth of product, wine, of availability is
far surpasses what the average 2,500 square foot store could have. in
But you
terms of
heard,
number of
you heard Ms.
SKUs.
Lawson's testimony about the number of SKUs they have in their store. The fact that it equals what he's saying he's gonna have in his store.
Objection.
That was the testimony from Ms. Lawson.
That's a mischaracterization of testimony. She testified to the number of SKUs he had. He talked about the number of products. You can have multiple SKUs for, you'd have
Well,
one product
then
and
that
have.
testimony needs to come out then, okay? Because that's not the way it came out. But anyway, the issue is, you're telling me that the only people that go to Total Wine are the ones that buy the stuff they can't get anywhere else?
No.
Okay, so therefore, when they're buying that case of champagne for their Christmas party, the champagne that they can still get down at Dawson's, at Fish Paws.
Well, the issue is that but if what is available right in front of them, if they wanted to duplicate that, you're right, they would have to go to Fish Balls, they would have to go to somewhere else, they would have to go, to probably cover the range of product that's available to them.
Which means that the local business people would get the business, instead of it going to this large store,
Actually, they wouldn't.
they wouldn't? Where would they go?
Would you go to 5 different liquor stores to get something? If, for a big event?
It depends.
Okay.
I didn't realize that Total Wine was an eleemosynary organization that gives stuff, doesn't want to make a lot more money. So you're telling me that they are very generous and they don't take advantage of the sales and give them back to the people?
They're a very profitable organization.
Very profitable. And what are their gross sales?
I'm not sure that I can give you that.
Why? You're the one that's talking about the profits and things like that.
But I'm not in their presence, and they've not given me permission to give you that number.
Well, you're not employed, you're not an employee by them. You're an independent contractor, right?
Correct.
So they've decided to tell you what their total sales are. But you're saying you're under a confidentiality agreement where you're not allowed to disclose that?
I believe that I am.
Do you have a written confidentiality
I
agreement?
do not have a written agreement.
So therefore, there's nothing in documentation that you have from them that says, you can't tell us today what their total sales are. Will you tell the board what the total sales are at Total Wine?
The advice of counsel, I will not refuse.
Well, she's not your counsel, she's his counsel.
I think he's refused. I think he's made it clear that he's not going to give us the number, but I appreciate the fortitude.
I can go and get the tax records and find out. That's
Yeah,
why-
I'm sure you could, but he said that he's not going to
It's
answer.
not a
so let's
private
move on.
number, that's where I'm having
Understood,
difficulty.
understood.
By the way, they do pay tax on all their wines, right?
As far as I know.
And they file retail sales tax with the state of Maryland, correct?
Correct.
So therefore, in order to find out what their total sales are, all I have to do is pull the retail sales tax report, isn't it? And it
Bingo.
was public knowledge.
Then go right ahead and do it.
Okay? No further questions.
All right, thank you. Ms. Schreckengast?
Anything else from you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have no further questions
All
of
right,
Mr.
great.
Patno.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions of Dr. Fatnow at this time?
No question.
Question?
No
Okay,
questions.
thank you, sir.
Sure.
I said I had 2 rebuttals. I got 3.
Okay.
Mr. Nicolai, I'm going to ask you a quick question again. Mr. Brown was curious to have this testimony on the record. When Ms. Lawson talked about the number of SKUs in her store, Mr. Brown indicated that's the same number of SKUs that you're going to have in your store. Could you please explain to the board the difference between a product and a SKU?
And before you do that, can you turn your microphone on?
Oh, sorry. Yes, Mr. Eckengast, as Mr. Brown mentioned on March 8th hearing, SKU is a stock-keeping unit. For example, let's take into consideration Hennessy cognac. Hennessy cognac can have different SKUs based on the size, different SKUs based on the package. For example, gift packs. I remember last year they had about 4 different gift packs for Hennessy VS750. It was Hennessy NBA, something else. And SKU is basically stock keeping unit, which is kind of want to say the UPC code on the bottle. They all different. So when I told my number, I made actual the product selection in the store that is going to be offered, not the SKU. If we're talking about SKUs, I don't even want to go there. I have to figure out how much that's going to be. I remember at Drinks Market when I used to own it, we had about 7,000 or 8,000 SKUs. Same thing as Meal Sauce and Testify too. But also, in order for you to figure out how many SKUs you have to consider how much inventory in the store you have. Because it's one thing the system tells you how much you have, and there's a bunch of zeros on inventory. Then it's another thing that you actually have in the store that you sell. So it's completely different things.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Brown?
How many products are you selling?
I'm not selling anything.
How many products do you want to sell?
It was written on the page that you showed.
Well, tell me, it's your store, you're the only one running it, you have had experience before, you ran the drinks up in Prince George County, you are the expert, you've been doing this for 6 years now, since you've owned it. How many products do you want to sell?
Are you talking about products or SKU?
Products. I didn't ask SKU, I asked you products.
I didn't
Yeah.
hear the question, that's why I was asking for clarification.
2,000, 3,000.
And how many
It's
does
very
Ms.
vague.
Lawson sell? How many products does she sell?
Oh, I can tell you exactly. Can you please give me?
Because you pulled all the records, didn't you?
Yeah, I can see it on her
Pulled
website.
all the records.
It's a public record on her website.
Oh, I understand that, just as it's a public record of how much the sales are total wine, but that's okay.
Oh, we didn't.
Yeah, but I didn't have to ask anyone to do it for me. I did it myself. Vaguely, it was about 2,400. And I did the whole margin for Miss Lawson's store to figure out her margin for all the products. Yeah. So liquor products, she has 738 in stock. Wine, she has 1,080. Beer, she has 293. I did not do cigarettes, I did not do soda, so that's probably gonna add about maybe another 300. So we're talking about, yeah, 2,400, 2,500, was close.
So, did you do an analysis just on her store or all the other stores around there?
Her store, because I disagree with her testimony on March 8th.
And tell me, how much business do you think you'll take from her store?
None.
None?
From her store? None.
So, you won't take any business from her store at all? You're under oath, by the way, you know that.
I understand.
No business. Okay. By the
I'm
way, are you
speaking
off the-
vaguely, yeah.
Are
But
you off the license in PG County?
yes, as we discussed on March 8th, this was done last year.
Is your sister on that license now?
Yes, she is. I don't understand. What are you trying to?
So one of the issues is fitness, and I just have to go find out what your answer is. I'm sorry. Thank
We
you.
discussed this at last hearing.
I understand that.
Mr.
No
Brown?
further questions.
Anything else? Mr. Eckengast, anything else?
Do you want to have that admitted as an exhibit?
I would like to, yeah.
Well, I'm going to object to it. I see no reason that comes in.
No, I think the testimony was that it came directly from her website. We'll admit it, and the board will give it the weight that it's worth. That'll be 13.
The weight that it's worth. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here you go, sir.
I know it is. Oh, I know. I can totally understand that.
Oh, great. Here, you can have it, Judy.
It is great argument.
Oops, I just dropped the paper clip. Sorry. All right. Mr. Eckengast?
I think I have one more thing I need to get in through. Bear with me for one moment. No, I have nothing further.
Okay. All right, Mr. Eckengast, I believe you have one more.
I have one more rebuttal witness.
Okay.
places with Ms. Mears.
Yep.
Ms. Mears, were you sworn in earlier?
I did, yes.
And could you please state your full name and address for the record?
Diana J. Mears, M-E-A-R-S. My address, 6640 Hickory Road, Stewartstown, Pennsylvania, 17363.
And could you please tell the board what your full-time profession is?
I am a certified question document examiner.
How did you become a forensic document examiner?
I trained under another world-renowned document examiner. I took her course, I worked in her office, and took her course, and then I took a test, got certified, worked for her full-time, and here I am now.
And how many hours do you have you devoted to training?
My training period, I spent 1,800 hours in training, which took me a period of about 3 years and 2 months.
And then what professional organizations of document examiners are you affiliated with?
The International Association of Document Examiners.
And what is your role within the organization?
Are you speaking currently or in the past as well?
Currently, at both.
Okay. I am a charter member, and for about 5 years, I was their newsletter editor. 4 years, I was their membership chairperson. I was also their 2016 conference chairperson.
And could you please tell the board what the most important criteria are for a document examiner?
The ability to do the work.
And what type of proficiency testing have you taken?
I've taken proficiency testing every year since I've been in this field of work. And the testing involves me identifying handwriting, particularly, with whether it's genuine, disguised, or simulated. So some of my tests have had as many as maybe 60 signatures of question, along with 60 or more signatures of known, and I had to determine what of the question, whether they were genuine or not.
And what is your rate of accuracy?
I have a high rate of accuracy. In that particular test I just spoke of, I was at 100%.
And how long have you been working as a professional handwriting examiner?
Well, I started my training in 2012. In 2015 is when I completed the course. I got my certification about 3 months later from that in October of 2016. And then I started working full-time in June of 2016. I worked for another company at that time, and I've recently gone into business for myself.
And do you adhere to the principles of document examination when working on cases involving question handwriting?
I do. When it comes to the comparison of signatures and handwriting, I do follow their guidelines, which are not requirements, but they're recommended.
And how many cases have you handled?
At this point in time, probably about 900 cases.
And how many times have you testified in court?
8 times so far.
And in what courts have you had an occasion to testify concerning questioned documents?
In Maryland, I've testified in both circuit and district courts. I've testified in Montgomery County, Carroll County, Charles County, Frederick County. I've also testified in federal court in New Jersey. I've testified in Delaware. I've testified in Virginia.
And have you assisted other document examiners in their work?
Yes, I have. I've not only done some training and presentations, but I also do second opinions for them.
And do you participate in any ongoing training opportunities?
I do. Each year I go to seminars as well as proficiency tests.
Now, at this point, I'd like to admit Ms. Mears as a handwriting expert.
Mr. Brown, I'm sure you have some questions of Ms. Mears.
I don't think I've ever asked questions of a handwriting expert before.
I'm sure you can find a way.
Maybe
You know what? I'm not going to belabor it.
Okay.
She sounds like she has the credentials. She's qualified 8 times. I mean, she
Okay,
I'll let her come in.
appreciate it.
I don't know what the relevance is right now, but we'll find that out in a minute.
I think we will. Thank you, Mr. Brown. All right,
Ms.
go ahead,
Mears,
she's
can you-
qualified.
I'm sorry.
She's qualified.
Okay, thank you very much. And Ms. Mears, can you please tell the board what you were asked, why you're here tonight, and what you were asked to do?
Yes, I was given a 69-page document, which was petitions, to look at to determine whether the handwriting was individual entries, excuse me, my earrings, individual entries, or whether more than one signature was done by the same person. And then I was also given another 13-page document to do the same.
And have you compiled a report? Is that what you have here in front of you?
Yes, I do. I have this one and the one I gave you, and then I have 3 more that we can give to the court if they would like to follow along.
Can I get a grab those?
Sure.
Send one down to Mr. Brown.
And then I just have these 2 that I have to share.
I don't know.
Now, the documents that you just identified for the board are scanned copies of petitions that were submitted by the opposition in this case. Is that correct?
Yes,
And those petitions are included in this report. Is that correct?
that is correct.
And could you please briefly walk through for the commissioners what you found in your examination of those documents?
Sure. If you would like to, we have a table of contents there, but at the beginning, on page,
I'm sorry, before you get going, do you
Sure.
have another copy by any
I'm
chance?
sorry, I just have the,
Mr. Eckhouse, if you need that one, you can certainly hold on to it. I
you
just
can
want to
share
borrow it
with
so I
me.
can.
I asked them how many, but this is what we got, so,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
no problem. Okay, so on page Roman numeral 1, at the very beginning there is my letter of opinion. And in there, I state my reason as to my finding in that, in my opinion, the petition was not conducted in a manner that gives it full credibility. And my reasons for it will go through my letter of opinion. So I've stated in here the type of characteristics that I look for. Now, my specialty is handwriting, so I look for all these different characteristics when looking at the handwriting. But the first thing I did to see if the document that I had to look at, I looked to see if there were any duplicates. And there were 2 pages that were duplicated within the first 69 pages that I analyzed. Now, I realized after looking at them closely that it may not be something that was done in malice, but perhaps because 2 of the pages were blurry and so they were rescanned. But because that was what was given to me, I had to make note that I started with 69 pages, but we're speaking of 67 pages. So I'm just bringing that point out. So I gave the page numbers in my letter of opinion here as to the ones that are duplicated, if you were to go back and check, because all of the source documents are in here for you to go back and look at. So I found instances where writers signed for other members of a household. Now, normally with petitions, each person signs for themselves because each person holds its own value. So I did find instances of that, and if you look at my letter of opinion on page Roman numeral 2, you'll see one example of it at the very top of the page. Those 2 entries are signatures that were written by the same person. And also, if you look on page Roman numeral 6, you will see 2 pages of more of the same where someone signed for more than themselves. They signed for other members within the household. Give you a minute to look. So there's 2 pages full of that where you'll see where the same person signed for 2 or more people. I would like to also draw your attention on page Roman numeral 6, that the third entry down, there are actually 3 lines there where they were signed, it was signed by 3 members instead of 2, so that's handwriting there is all 3 written by 1 person, instead of the 3 individuals that are being indicated.
Amber alert.
Then my next thing that I started to look at and found were instances where writers signed more than 1 entry under different names or address. And you'll see that on page Roman numeral 2, you'll see an instance of that where we have two signatures, different names, but the same address. Well, actually different addresses. But both of those signatures are written by the same person. Then we have and if you go to Exhibit B in my book, Roman numeral 7, or is it 8? No, I'm sorry, it's 8. Roman numeral 8, you'll see a couple more entries that I've made there, and I've also gone to the liberty of putting in some red markings so that you can see the characteristics that I'm comparing together to show how I came to my conclusion that it's the same writer. Then I found instances where writers signed twice, and again, as mentioned earlier here today, that does happen when people sign petitions. Either they forget that they signed it, or they go to another location and they're like, well, I don't know if I'll sign that one, you know. So there is an instance here of Paul Gilmore. You'll see 2 entries there where he signed it twice. But if you go to example C on page 9, you'll see more instances of the same thing where people signed and made entries twice. So even though that might not have been done in malice either, it does show, though, that the amount of signatures on the document itself are not all valid. So that's why I'm bringing these points out. Then I saw some signs of fabrication, and this is where it started to really concern me about this document, because I'm seeing where there's handwriting in the comments area that are being made supposedly to look like they were made from an individual when it's the same person writing it. So if you look on page Roman numeral 2, at the bottom, you'll see 5 instances where the word business is written. And if you look at the letter B, that is very unique. In fact, as long as I've been in this field of work, I've never seen someone write the letter B to look like a 6. And so you have 5 instances of that, which tells me that those 5 individuals didn't write their own comment. 1 person wrote all 5 of them. Let's go to Roman numeral 3. I also found it odd that there were 3 versions of a Sam K to go along with those letter B sixes that look like, the letter B that looks like a 6. There's 3 instances there, and they are all Sam K, and the handwriting is done all by the same person. So there's 3 entries there that was done by 1 person. Then I found in the document where there were repeated symbols that were being used and hand shapes, shapes that were written, and words that were written. So if you look at the same page, Roman numeral 3, you'll see a couple of question marks, you'll see a couple of smiley faces, and you'll see a row of hearts, which are kind of uniquely drawn, but there's 5 hearts there, and you'll see 2 words that say loyal customer. So those were written by the same person. The 2 loyal customer were written by the same person. The hearts were all done because of the way that they were formed, particularly with the bottoms open, shows me that they were written by the same person. Then we go on to what I call consecutive writing, where someone sits down and they're taking a page and they just start writing a bunch of things down the list. And so we found some instances of that. And if you look on Roman numeral 3, you'll see the word opposed 3 times. And in fact, it's misspelled. Same person wrote it all 3 times. Then we have instances where shop local, shop local, shop local, shop local, all written by the same person, but yet they're supposed to be in different comment lines for an individual. Same thing for the words too many. There's 3 instances here, and there were more within the document, all written by the same person. Let's go to page Roman numeral 4. There's instances of the word small. Clearly, all 3 of them were written by the same person. And there's 2 instances of the word awesome store. Both of those were written by the same person. Then I've seen some examples of disguise. Now, you might wonder, what is disguise in handwriting? Well, the very first and most important one that a lot of people try to use when they disguise handwriting is they change the slant. Instead of going one way, they go the other because they think, well, that's going to change the signature enough pictorially that it'll pass off as being 2 different people. So here you'll see an instance of that comes from the documents, and you have a Jean DeFeo and a Matthew DeFeo. Both of them are written by the same person, but the slant has been changed. Another thing I'd like to point out here is you'll notice that the top one is written, well, actually, this isn't the area, but these are both written by the same person because of the slant. I do have another form of disguise that I'll share with you in a few moments. Actually, it's the next one down. If you look at the first one, who we have Catherine and Jonathan, they are both written by the same person, but you'll notice what they've done to try to make it look like 2 different people is they used all caps in one, but they used lowercase letters in the other. And so both of those were written by the same person. So as I keep going along, I'm seeing all of these things and all of these instances where this document is fabricated, where someone has sat down and has written a bunch of entries trying to pass it off as a bunch of different people. And then I decided to take it a step further, because as a document examiner, we do look at other things besides handwriting. And I do have a paragraph in there that talks about what the document itself was asking for. When we have a petition, generally you want at least the basic information, right? You want a signature, you want a printed name, and you may want an address. Maybe it doesn't have to be complete, but you might want to have a street address at least to verify that the person who is signing lives there. So I did a tally and worked it up and found out that maybe 21% did all 3 parts. Out of all 3 of those minor entries, only 21% fulfilled their line of information completely. Others, they either signed it and that was it, just a signature. Another, it might have been just printed and that was it. A lot of them knew addresses and that was it. So to me, that kind of has an effect on the integrity of the document and the credibility of the document, in that this was not a petition that was done to have full credibility and to be one looked at seriously. So in conclusion, in finding all of these things, it's my opinion that this document was mostly fabricated and not taken in the manner that it should have been, and not monitored that the people signing it were individual people signing it. Now, I was asked just yesterday to look at the 13-page document. What we spoke of in this first letter was the 69 pages. Now, unless the court wants me to go further, there are 13 pages, and I did the same thing. There is a letter of opinion in the back of the book that also shows the same types of things going on. The only thing I would want to point out, if I may, is when you go towards the back of the book, past the blue supplementary page, there is on the Roman numeral 2 of that letter of opinion, you'll see the hearts in the bottom half of the page. The first 2 hearts were from the 69-page document. The second 2 hearts were from the 13-page document, or 16-page, I forget now what it was.
Well, you're not an expert.
But that shows how that they correlate with each other, that they're consistent with each other. Also, if you'll take a look at the squiggly lines below it, I saw that and I'm like, what's that all about? But that certainly is consistent, consecutive writing. It was consecutively written, where someone was sitting there doing just as I said. So I just wanted to point that out. So there is a second supplemental letter of opinion that's in the back of the book as well. And all of the source documents are in here as well.
Mr. Brown?
How much did you charge for this report?
Objection.
Why? We have a right to know where her biases may be and how much she was charged.
Overruled.
Every expert can be asked that.
Well, I'm not biased, and I wasn't bought for my opinion,
How much were you paid?
but I was paid $50 a page, which amounted to about $5,100, which is low in my field of work. Most people earn $250 to $350 or $375 an hour for their work.
Well, wait a minute. There's 15, how many pages?
She only got 67.
There were 200 and some pages, almost 300 pages total?
No, sir, there was 69, and then there was the other 13, I think it was 13,
Yeah.
13 pages.
Okay, so-
69 and 13 times 50 is what I got. And that was charging $50
Did you
a
review,
half hour.
did you review the survey that they put out to see how many of those were valid?
What survey are you talking about, sir?
Your client put out.
I was only given these 2 documents. I wasn't asked about any other document.
So therefore, you weren't asked to determine whether or not the pages that they put out with their signature on it were valid or not? Only the ones that we had?
No, sir, I wasn't.
Okay. Now, these surveys are all in liquor stores, sitting at the counter.
Sure.
People come up and sign. Is it invalid if somebody doesn't put a comment at the end?
No, it's not invalid.
Okay? How many of the signatures, of the 1,500 signatures that you saw in here, the actual signature, do you think was invalid?
I spoke and told you that my opinion, that if you want to have a reputable,
Ma'am, I'm not asking about your opinion for reputable. I'm asking about how many of the 1,500 signatures do you consider invalid and duplicate signature? Not the sign at the end where somebody written down all the way down the bottom, support, 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 support at the last column. I want to know on the signatures, how many of those 1,500 signatures itself did you find invalid?
I showed you what's in the book here, sir, and it would
Well,
take me,
ma'am-
it would take me a month of Sundays to find every single set. I'm just showing the court examples of what I found. That's all.
So therefore, you can't say that any of these signatures are invalid, only that the subsections are invalid.
If I'm signing a petition for myself, and I'm saying that I believe in something, I don't expect my husband to sign for me.
Well, ma'am, that's your opinion.
So-
My question is, if you and your husband are there at a place and say, you know, we think they ought to put calamari on their menu, do you agree with that? Yeah, I agree with that. I'm going to sign your name here, too. How many of these are authorized by another person when a husband and wife are there together?
Okay, but the fact of the matter.
Answer my question.
All right,
How many of these are
Give me an easy
authorized?
question then.
How many of
Make
these
it basic.
How many of these are authorized by the other person if somebody else signs it?
Objection.
Overruled.
How many, ma'am?
I can't tell you, I can't
That's
tell that.
right,
I
you
can't,
can't.
but this whole analysis was not just based on a husband signing for a wife. There are so many other things within the document that I've pointed out showing where somebody else is signing somebody else's name, not even related, in another household.
How many times did that
So-
happen? Of the 1,500 signatures, how many times did you find that somebody else signed somebody else's name?
In my book, I have three examples, but I'm not saying there isn't more.
So
I
you
was
want-
only
you can only-
allotted I was only allotted 30 minutes per page, and I did what I could with what is here.
Wait.
But it's clearly
so you weren't told to do your job. You were told to do your job at 30 minutes a page, find what you can, but don't give us a complete report, only give us a 30-minute
No, that's not
page
true. They
report.
didn't say that, no.
Well, you just
They
said, ma'am-
asked me what I charged, and I told them what I would do, and I said, well, I can do 30 minutes a page for you and see what we can find. Now, in my opinion, and again, I'm only here as an expert witness giving my opinion.
Well, ma'am-
I'm opining on this document, and in my opinion, this document was not clearly monitored in at least the slightest way to see if people that were signing it were people who should be signing it as their own individual person. And somebody went back on 69 pages and started writing in comments in all of those pages to make it appear
Ma'am, you don't have to look at me that way. Look to the board, okay?
like the individual was signing it themselves.
Ma'am, how many of these signatures are invalid for the signature itself? How many of these signatures are duplicate of the 1,500 in here?
I gave you duplicates that I have in here. If I'd have had a month of Sundays, I could find more, I guarantee you.
Well, ma'am, so you're in here with an incomplete report tonight. Because you can't
No.
tell us, all you can tell us is that somebody, maybe sitting at the end, wrote down good business, small business, blah, blah, as a comment. Somebody wrote no. Somebody put a little heart after the thing to thank somebody for putting something in there. So you can't tell us the purpose of any of these signatures on here. And you can't even name 10% of this 1,500 that the signature is invalid. Isn't that correct?
I'm saying that what I know.
Ma'am, I'm asking you to answer my question. You're an expert, and as an expert, you've been on the stand 8 times. You've been qualified as an expert 8 times, so therefore you should know how to answer a question rather than avoiding the question.
If you're asking me if a signature is genuine, yes, there's a lot on there that are not genuine.
How many?
I'd have to go back and look at every single place, but I've given you examples of it, that there are signatures that are not genuine signatures from individuals whose name they bear.
So you're telling this board that they need to speculate that based on your representations, this whole thing gets thrown out, even though it doesn't matter because the board doesn't give a lot of credit to the signatures in these things, and your client spent over $5,000 on you to come in here and prove one of these points. You're telling this board to speculate based upon your expertise that this whole thing is bad and that these 1,500 people are all fraudulently signed and that nobody is being honest before this board.
Objection.
Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Oh, so therefore these signatures are valid.
I am saying that there are signatures that are not valid. They were not written by the person whose name they bear.
Well, are you sure they weren't written by the person whose name they bear?
I am sure that some of those signatures were not signed by the person whose name they bear.
And all those people, the signatures are not written by the person whose name they bear.
That's right.
How many of them had authorization to sign for the other person?
I told you I can't determine that.
There
But
you go.
again, we're talking about whether or not and how you want to determine whether it's a credible petition or not.
But you can't determine that, ma'am, unless you go through every name, you make your
I
telephone
gave-
calls to every person, you check the addresses. You can't testify that this is invalid unless you do a thorough evaluation.
I
And you
said
did
that some
30
of
minutes-
them are invalid. I did not say the whole document. I said it showed some signs of fabrication.
Okay, how many are
It
good?
showed some-
Tell me how many are good. That's all I want to know. How many are good? 3 of them? 300 of them?
I've
1,427?
given my examples to the court, and they're the ones who have to make their decision.
Mr. Brown, I think the point's made.
I hope so, but I'm not sure. I just want to
I
make
don't like
sure.
an attorney that badgers.
And yeah. So unless you have anything else.
Oh, I have nothing else.
Okay. Mr. Ringoss, anything
I would
else?
like to move that this be Exhibit B.
I object to it. It's not based upon science. It's not based on an evaluation. She had 30 minutes on each page. She couldn't tell us which signatures are valid or invalid, and I see no basis in this at all for coming in.
We're
But
going to
it's the
admit
board's
it.
choice.
It's coming in.
Did you get all your badgering out of your system?
Not yet.
Thank you.
You have another
We're
witness?
about to hear from
You gave
the
me good
public, so let's not do that.
Let's hope, yeah, you're done.
Yeah.
May I leave the courtroom?
Let me see if
I'm
the
going
board
to
has
go
any
to-
questions before you're
Sure,
excused.
absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you,
Commissioner
sir.
Duffy?
No questions.
Commissioner Snoops? Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
I can leave completely.
Mr. Ringoss, do you want this copy back? I think the board, Judy, do you have a copy of it? Okay. Okay.
100. first.
Number 14, yes, ma'am.
Petition
Okay.
doesn't mean anything.
All right. So next, we are going to open it up to hear from members of the public who are here to testify in support of this application. So if anybody is here in support of this application, please come forward. Try to limit your testimony. We don't want you repeating things that have already been said, but, and this kind of goes for everybody when we move to those who are going to testify against this as well. So, sir, if you could just give us your name and address for the record, and I presume you were here previously when everybody was sworn in, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I was.
great.
My name is Chris Paradis. Chris, C-H-R-I-S, P-A-R-A-D-I-S-S-I-S. I live in Severna Park, Maryland, 665 Arley Road, 21146. I'm the owner of Romulo's Restaurant, and I'm really here on behalf of my business and really to speak to the Robinson Crossing Shopping Center. I understand all these business owners and how difficult it is to survive, excuse me, in a very, very competitive atmosphere. I was a VP of operations prior to owning Romulo's for Giant Foods for 15 years. So I understand competition, big box retailers, discounts, volume buys. That applies to a small restaurant as well, not just liquor stores. So I have to deal with that with other restaurants that have opened up in Severna Park. And to be quite honest with you, in the last 2 years, I've had at least 10 restaurants open. But I'm going to tell you, I have to deal with that. I have to fight that every day and try to provide our customers something that's unique, superior to our competitors. That's a competition that we deal with every day. But really, truly, I have a lot of respect for all the small businesses, liquor stores especially, because I personally go there for my personal business board when I buy, and I support all of them. They're great establishments. But Robinson Crossing, I want to talk about that center. And I live there. I work 80 to 90 hours a week in my restaurant. The pandemic has been devastating for all of us. I don't know how much time I have, but I have some things
We're
that...
trying to keep it at approximately 2 minutes.
So this is what I want to say.
2 minutes. Yeah.
Robinson Crossing Shopping Center is at a huge disadvantage of other shopping centers, and I'm going to tell you why. There was a food line. I was in the supermarket business for 37 years. The food line went out of business. Why? Why did it go out of business? The visibility of that center is terrible. All the businesses in my center that I coexist with have struggled. Food line went out of business. It went dark for almost 2 years. Okay? The landlord didn't give me any discounts. I had to pay my full rent. I didn't miss one payment of rent through the pandemic. So you need to give me more than 2 minutes, sir, respectfully, if you can just give me 3. I have a lot of passion with what I'm saying.
It's already been 4.5. I'm just timing, that's all.
You're not nice.
We'll give you.
So all I'm saying is the Robinson Crossing Center is struggling. It's continued to struggle. We just had all these open up, thank God, okay? We need to attract more businesses into that center, and the landlord has done nothing to help us. And I don't care if they hear this from me because they know where I stand. We need more viable businesses to draw new customers into that center for that center to be sustainable. That's my piece. I'm not opposed to their perspective and what they're saying. I'm not opposed to new business, but to be quite honest with you, I'm dealing with new competitors every day that open up in Severna Park, restaurants, that is probably the most competitive business in the industry. So
Understood.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
No questions. Thank you.
No questions?
All right. Is there anybody else here to testify in support of this application? All right. We will move on to those who are here to testify in opposition. Again, we're going to try to limit testimony, and if you come forward and you speak, please be mindful of the time and try not to reiterate what other members of the public have said. Okay? All right, thank you, sir. If you could just give us your name and address for the record.
Sean Haggerty, 418 Red Birch Road, Millersville, Maryland.
Okay, and just you haven't spoken before, you haven't testified?
No, I've not spoken
Okay.
before.
All right.
Just a quick background, I'm speaking more as a resident, but my background is a CPA and financial advisor for the last 20 years, plus I've worked in corporate finance. What I have actually worked with a couple of the local business owners here. What I think is clear, if I were in your situation, I think the business decision, and I think this was just even more emphasized, is that place or that location is not a good location. If I were your business advisor, I would probably recommend not. But here's my biggest concern, is that you have a number of small business owners who have dedicated their time. And these business owners have been here for a number of years. We have a great competition in the Severna Park area for liquor stores. And I do use those liquor stores, and I use a number of them. But I think it's important that people realize that these small business people, this is their retirement plan in most cases. I've seen the finances. You know, most small business owners don't own a big stock portfolio because their business is their equity, okay? And they rely upon that for retirement. And so when you come in here, I think your business model is definitely set up to be disruptive and not productive to the community. It's going to impact a number of these business owners. So a couple key points. That we do have a number of competition and services within our community for liquor stores. I don't think we need another one, but not an expert witness on that. A company will not only in the area where they believe they can make a profit, you know, but most companies do that. And I think the way today's business has been is being more focused on volume and discounts and underpinning or undermining other small businesses, which I don't think is the way you want to run a community. And that's been my biggest concern, is that as we destroy these small businesses, or we make it harder for these people to run their small businesses, you are hurting the community. These people donate their time, energy to local events. It's amazing how many of them show up in their local advertisement. So my biggest concern is as you look at these big stores, a 20,000 square foot facility of selling liquor in Severna Park, as I said, from a business point of view, makes no sense to me. But as a community member, it makes me even more fearful because you will take out these small people. And these people are involved in the business. They provide competition, and more importantly, they do service the community. So again, I hope, and again, I have nothing against capitalism. I support it wholeheartedly. But I think sometimes you got to look at how we're running our businesses and how we're trying to achieve things.
All right, thank you.
Could you please spell the last name?
Oh, sorry, we got to get
It's Haggerty, H-A-G-E-R-T-Y.
And then let me just see if the commissioners have any questions. Any questions on Mr. Haggerty? Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Duffy?
No,
Okay.
no question.
Thank you, sir. All right, sir, go ahead and give us your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Katz, 369 Willett Drive, Severna Park, Maryland.
And could you spell your last name, please, Mr. Katz? K-A-T-Z?
K-A-T-Z.
All right, thank you.
I'm here representing myself as a long-term member of the community, and I am representing Voice Media, which runs the Severna Park Voice newspaper, and I am representing the publishers of the Severna Park Voice. The Voice has been ingrained in this community for 40 years. These people are our clients, our neighbors, and our friends. I'm a capitalist, as the last gentleman said. New business is what makes me stay in business. But at the end of the day, these family-owned businesses aren't just family-owned, they're multiple generations of family-owned businesses. And this thought this big box store could come in, and I don't have anything against them personally, but are going to come in here and create this massive and undercut this market, it will take business away from these local businesses. And again, I'm involved with them every day on a day in and day out basis, professionally. On a personal level, I live in Berrywood West. I can walk to this location very easily, less than a mile away. Interestingly enough, there are 2 liquor stores closer than that to me. So the thought that we need another liquor store in my community, I literally can walk to 2 liquor stores closer than this new location. And again, I'm in Berrywood West, so if you know it, it's that under a mile. So again, not just on behalf of Severna Park Voice newspaper, these people are our clients. But as an individual who's lived in this community and raised my 4 children in this community, my wife's a teacher in this community, I don't believe that we need this. We're a unique place. Severna Park Voice exists because of the uniqueness of Severna Park and the small town community atmosphere that it has. And I do believe that's what makes it such a unique place, and in fact what makes my business successful. If Severna Park was full of large national-based companies, I wouldn't be in business. There's no way. And for a small town business to be producing an 80-page newspaper this month, obviously it's because of the community that we're in.
All right, thank you, Mr.
That's all I've got to say.
Mr. Chairman, any questions?
I have no questions.
Commissioner
Thank
Duffy,
you.
Snoops?
No question.
Thank you, sir.
May I ask a question, Mr. Katz?
Sure.
Yes.
Could you restate your last statement just then? Did you think that he's a big corporation coming in? Is that what you said?
Well, a large business that's going to come in from the outside is going to take away from these small businesses. We have a unique small town atmosphere, and you can see it in our local businesses. Whether it's Romulo's or whether it's Goska's Liquor or Cafe Mezzanate, the owners are there running those businesses every day. They also live right next door to those businesses. Corwell Liquors, Ron Corwell lives behind his liquor store. These people are ingrained in this community, not just family-wise, but again, I want to repeat, multiple generations that these people have owned these liquor stores. And I think that it really is a bit frightening to think that they're going to be put out of business.
Were you here on March 8th to hear the testimony?
No, I was not.
Mr. Nikolaev is a small business. He has a wife and a son, and he is going, if this license is granted, he will be moving to Anne Arundel County to run the store himself.
Yeah, Mr. Eckinghaus, let's move
Done.
on and I just want the public testimony.
You got it.
And we're going to try to keep it limited. Mr. Katz, I appreciate your testimony, but this is the second person who has said they've expressed a fear of larger businesses coming in and taking over small businesses. So let's try to keep the public testimony. If you have anything new to add, that would be fantastic. The board would be glad to hear from you, but we don't want to continue to belabor the point. Thank you, Mr. Katz. I appreciate it. Anybody else testifying in opposition?
Good evening. How is everyone?
Good. Just your name and address, please.
My name is Kevin Sosnowski. Last name is spelled Sosnoski. I own Goska's Liquors in Severna Park. The address is 501 Leland Drive, right in Severna Park, 21146. First, I just want to say, since 2012, my business has seen a decrease in sales. 50,000 from one year, 60,000 to the next year, and these are numbers that I'm not getting back. 2019, 2020, I did see an increase, pandemic related, $140,000+. Right now, I'm projected to be down $250,000 in sales. So I lost, obviously, what I gained in the pandemic, and I'm continuing to lose at a steady clip every year. So sales are very important to me. Robinson, as far as that intersection, was graded, I guess, an E. I probably have an F at my intersection. And more traffic coming into that area is just going to decrease my business even further. I'm a third-generation owner. I live in Severna Park. My brother and I, my sister, my father, my mother, my aunts, uncles, since 1930 have lived in that building, and we've worked in that building, and we've been in the community. So we are definitely no strangers. I guess another thing is, similar to Ron and Corwell and his business, his building was there since 1950. My building has been there over 100 years. So I have no easements. I have no way of increasing my building or going up without buying more land and putting my store in a different situation. We make the most of what we have. I think we have the best customer service in Severna Park. And, when you're dealing with businesses, with Romulo's, it's a restaurant. They're not as regulated, I don't think, in granting licenses. I'm not sure. but I do understand that liquor licenses have been more regulated. I do think not only is it your job to deal out new licenses and, create a better economic atmosphere, but it's also your responsibility to back the licenses that you have already granted. And it's your responsibility, which I do feel, to set up, the businesses that are already established to succeed. And that's
Thank you.
what I have to say.
I appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, any questions?
Just real quick, it's Kevin, right?
Yes.
Where do you think what's causing your business to go south? Is that the road?
I just think, well, since I've been ownership of that business, since '95 fully, there has been 2 other liquor stores granted in the area. There's Ferna Park and there's Magavie. So to say that those businesses didn't cut into my business is, fantasy. And I'm not sure exactly, is there a law or is there a regulation within Anne Arundel County as far as the size of square foot for a liquor store to be granted?
We're not going to answer your questions here, sir. This
Okay,
is
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
So, that's something else to consider, but.
Sure.
Yeah.
Understood.
Okay.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Duffy, do you have any questions?
No question.
Commissioner Snoops? Okay.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Anybody else who has anything new to add in opposition? Okay, sir, go ahead. Just give us your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Danny Cipriano, Cipriano, and my address is 434 Capstan Court, and that's in Arnold, Maryland, 21012.
Okay.
So I'm here representing Dawson's Liquors, family owned for many, many years, and I'm currently the general manager and part owner. Dawson's Liquors has been an institution in Severna Park since 1944. After the passing of Cliff Dawson, his family sold the business to our family and partners in 1985. For the past 78 years, Dawson's has been known for great customer service, a friendly, knowledgeable staff, and a vast product selection. Dawson's annually donates over $10,000 to numerous charities and community fundraisers throughout the year, and is a sponsor of the Annapolis Striders Father's Day 5K run on the BNA Trail. In the past year, we have installed a new walk-in 12-door beer box, an 8-door zero-zone refrigeration unit. New shelving units were added in the beer section to accommodate the over 1,000 types of beer we handle. In 2020, we computerized the store and installed a digital marquee sign. All of this was done at a total cost of approximately $180,000. We are always improving to satisfy the needs of our customers and keep up with the current trends. Even though liquor stores were not closed during COVID, with all the uncertainty surrounding COVID and for the protection of our customers and employees, Dawson's operated for the first 4 months of COVID by providing curbside service only. During those 4 months, we installed framed plexiglass shields around the registers, purchased 2 hydroxyl generators for air purification, and added hand sanitizer stations. We are a 4,900 square foot full service liquor store and carry approximately 1,000 different brands of spirits, 800 different types of wine, and over 1,000 beers and craft beers. We have 14 employees on the payroll and pay 100% of their health insurance, annually contribute 10% of their salary to a SEP IRA retirement account, and provide yearly bonuses. All of this is in jeopardy if a 22,000 square foot store, which is over 4 times the size of our store and is located just 0.8 of a mile from us, a 1 minute and 50-second drive, is allowed to open. What will this do to the existing businesses, 3 of which are less than a mile from this proposed humongous store? 1 is directly across the street. Granting a new liquor license to a 22,000 square foot store is equivalent to granting 5 new licenses. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time, sir. Does the board have any questions of Mr. Cipriano? Okay.
No question.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for letting me speak.
Anybody else who would like to testify in opposition, only if there's anything new that you would like to add?
Mr.
Chairman, rather than having the other people testify, I told them they could do a showing of hands at the end, if you don't mind, if we could just have people stand up who would support and against.
Absolutely. And then I would also give people the ability to submit written comment if they want within 5 days from today, if they'd rather do that. Only if you have something new to add that hasn't been provided for tonight or hasn't been spoken about tonight. Okay, we don't want to overwhelm the administration with additional comments.
I guess there's somebody else.
I guess there's somebody else who's coming up.
I didn't know if I could add anything nice or new. My name is Chuck Farrar, 3021 Bennett Point Road, Queenstown, Maryland. I have some experience with this bill. I actually lobbied for it when it was passed, and I had the first store in the state to pierce the 10,000 square foot rule. I did it without a lawyer, or I did it without anybody, because I'm just a small businessman. It's not complicated. The purpose of the law was to keep stores under 10,000 square foot. And it was because Trone built the first big store and the issues that we had. The piercing, allowing the stores to be larger, had two big restrictions. Number one was the public need. Can you prove public need? I certainly don't think the applicant has proved public need at all, let alone for a 20,000 square foot store. I don't think he's proved it for a 5,000 square foot store. Number two, will it impact local businesses? And it gives real standing to this. I have a 15, or had, I'm out of the business now. I had a 15,000 square foot store. I know how much it costs to operate. I know how much it costs to stock. That store that he's going to build will have to do approximately $10 million a year to break even. That's $200,000 a week. And that $200,000 a week is coming out of our local market, the local stores. You can't cut it any other way. So for those reasons, I'm opposed to this.
Thank you, Mr. Farrar. Any questions from the board?
No questions.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
I have a quick question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
When you owned your business, and when you increased you took advantage of the law and increased your store to 15,000 square feet, did any of your neighbors go out of business when you expanded?
Yes.
How many?
Two.
Did they go out of business because of you, or did they sell?
I didn't know they went out of business. I can't tell. I would drove them out of business. They just went out of business.
Okay, thank you.
You know, Bluebird might have come down. I didn't know.
All right. So we will close the public testimony with that comment. Do we want to? Does the board want to take a short recess?
Yeah, that would be a great idea.
I think we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll allow council to proceed with closing arguments. Okay.
Can we do a show of hands?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do a show of hands, actually, so everybody can get out of here. Let's do a show of hands of everybody who showed up in opposition. Okay.
Please keep them up.
Please keep them up. We're going to count. What'd you get, Wayne?
I got 31.
I had 32.
All right.
We'll give it to you.
Nobody here is good at math. We know that. That's on the record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Brown, we'll take into consideration you're a lawyer and use my numbers.
Yeah. And then has everybody signed the sign-in sheet as well? Yeah. Okay.
It's a rounding factor.
So we have an accurate count. All right. Thank you, everybody. We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and we'll be right back. Okay. Thanks.
Do you have any more concerning if you want to stay and see what happens? I don't think there are.
You come in.
Attention, attention, please. We could come back to order. Yeah, okay. Order. Thank you. Okay, we're going to resume the hearing. Jimmy, do you want to?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. We're now to the final portion where we're going to hear closing arguments. We'll hear first from the applicant, Ms. Schreckengoss, then we'll hear from Mr. Brown and Mr. Lyman from the opponents, and then we will give Ms. Schreckengoss the last word. Okay? Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
2 days and we're almost done. So the testimony has shown this board that both Mr. Nikolaev and Mr. Breeden are fit and proper individuals to hold this liquor license. There has been, neither applicant has any felony convictions. There's no material false statements made in the application. They did not commit fraud within connection with the application. And contrary to what the opponents would like you to believe, Mr. Nikolaev does not have an interest in another liquor license anywhere in the state or in the country. Robinson Liquors has shown a public need and accommodation for the issuance of the license and otherwise meets all the requirements as required by 4210, as demonstrated by the evidence presented to this board. And based on that evidence, the board should grant the application and issue the license. Mr. Nikolaev's testimony that he did research for over a year to find a suitable location should speak large volumes about how seriously he takes this. He's inputting his personal investment into this business. He wouldn't go to a location where it wasn't going to be viable. The petitions that we gathered from almost 400 people indicate that there's a public desire for the license. Keep in mind that the signers of this unconventional electronic petition had to make a conscious decision to sign this petition. You get a flyer in the mail. You had to either look at that flyer and scan it in your phone, or you had to throw it in the trash can. 397 people decided they were going to sign the petition. Based on the testimony from Mr. Patnode, typical response rates for mass mailing is 1.5% to 2.5%. There was testimony that 10 to 15,000 flyers were sent out with 369 responses. That's a 2.9% response rate. The response for the flyers exceeded what the average is for mass mailings. That should tell the board something. With respect to the opposition's petitions, our expert, Ms. Mears, has pointed out many of the inconsistencies and concerns that she had with that, and I asked the board to acknowledge her opinion and decision that these are not fully credible documents. To the public desire prong, Mr. Donato, the landlord's expert, and Mr. Patnode both testified that it is commonplace for liquor stores and grocery stores to be co-located. This goes to the point that it's a convenience for the public. As he testified, Mr. Nikolaev would not have chosen a location where the demographics do not support the need. He has no interest in stealing customers or putting others out of business. He's an entrepreneur with a big business model that he would like to place here in Anne Arundel County. Dr. Patnode took into account the number and location of existing license holders in his analysis and testified that based on the demographic data and consumer spending pattern, the impact on existing license holders will be negligible. Dr. Patnode's report indicates that the area will support more entrants into the market without a direct negative impact on the existing licensees in terms of the current accessible demand. Dr. Patnode further testified that in his experience with large liquor stores, the immediate licensees suffer no long-term ill effects because other people are coming into the area to buy liquor. That goes to his point about the different market segments with big box stores. The typical patron of a larger liquor store does not go there on a routine basis. They go there for special occasions and buy large quantities and for a wider selection. These same patrons will continue to go to their local liquor stores for their daily shopping. In Mr. Patnode's experience, the larger liquor stores do not discount everything they have in the store to the detriment of other stores in the area because they don't have to. Customers are willing to drive further for a larger selection and pay a premium to do so. The evidence has shown that there is a population of 6,069 individuals per license in the tax assessment district where this store is located, thus exceeding the one license per 4,000 person guidelines provided in the code under 11-1602 of the Alcoholic Beverage Code for this board to consider. The protestant's expert did not complete an independent analysis to provide to the board to indicate what the impact of an existing license holders will be. The testimony by the existing licensees only provided supposition and a belief that their businesses will be harmed by a larger store. Ms. Lawson testified that her profit margin is 25 to 30%. This is on the high side of the national average for liquor stores, contrary to her testimony that she has low margins. There is always going to be commonality of services and products. However, Mr. Nikolaev testified that his store will be unique in that the size allows for larger aisles for the customers, adequate space for the store employees. He will be doing stocking in the evenings and not during the day, so he doesn't interfere with the customer's experience. Tastings will be handled by educated employees as opposed to third parties. He will hire staff which he stresses will be respectful and professional. He also will be making available to his employees the Wine and Spirits Education Trust to further educate them on the tastings and being a good employee for the community. Mr. Donato testified that this license will not have a negative impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the community. The center has over 500 parking spaces, and the data shows the traffic flow will not change. Dr. Patnode also concluded that the traffic will not be impacted by the addition of a liquor store at this location. It doesn't matter what goes into the space. The traffic is the traffic. If the traffic is not good at the shopping center, it's not going to change because Robinson Liquors opens up there. There's going to be a tenant there no matter what. The landlord is not going to let the space stay empty. Contrary to what the protestants would have you believe about Robinson's Liquor, this is a small business. He owns it by himself. He's investing his life savings into it. He's just choosing to build a large store. According to the case of Baltimore County Licensed Beverage Association versus Quan, the definition of public need in administrative cases generally has been held to be that which is convenient, useful, appropriate, suitable, proper, or conducive to the public interest. In the case of Robinson Liquors, the wider aisles, the larger variety of alcoholic beverage to select from provides a comfort and convenience to the public. The testimony of Mr. Donato and Dr. Patnode concluded that Robinson Liquors is a proper place to accommodate the public. Having liquor stores next to grocery stores is convenient, useful, and appropriate, and conducive to the public. Mr. Donato further testified that it's convenient for the local community to have a large store in the area so that the people who are currently driving to Laurel don't have to. They can stay in here, stay in Severna Park. The board's consideration of the potential effect on existing licensees does not allow competitors to stifle competition by arguing a loss of business. Under the applicable case law, which is Quan, it makes clear that existing licensees do not have a vested right to be free from competition, and that a liquor board's function is to protect the interests of the public generally, not the interests of individual existing license holder. In the Quan case, a liquor board denied an application to transfer a liquor license, but as this board is well aware, the requirements for transfer and the issuance of a new license incorporate the same standards. The court there stated that, and this is a quote from the opinion, although it is not clear from this excerpt what standard the board used to determine whether the Quan's requested transfer was necessary, it appears from the transcript of the hearing that the board employed a standard that focused at least in part on the effect the transfer would have on other licensees who are competitors of the Quans. Although the proper exercise of the board's power may produce a secondary effect of limiting economic competition, its power must be used for the primary purpose of protecting the public and promoting the general welfare and not to benefit and protect individual license holders. Accordingly, the board may not subvert the necessity standard to use it to shield license holders from increased competition. That's a quote directly from the Quan case. The role of the board is to protect the interests of the public, and examination must therefore focus on the effect on the public, not the particular effect on the bottom line of existing licensees. Under Quan, the board should not consider the allegations that the proposed license may have a negative financial effect on the protestants of the Robinson Liquors application, because the fact is not relevant to the examination of the public need for the license. While the cases since Quan have recognized that general effect on existing licensees is one of many factors a board may consider, those cases have still affirmed the concept that protection of existing license holders from any negative effect of a new license cannot be the sole focus of a liquor board. It's clear from the case law that the primary concern for the board is the public and not the existing licensees. For this reason, even assuming arguendo that the proposed license could have a negative impact on existing licensees. If a public need has been shown by the applicant, the public need must outweigh the potential negative effect on the individuals. Because that need has been shown in this case, the board should approve the application and issue the license. This case is not dissimilar to other big box stores such as BJ's or Costco using size to offer more selection and better value to satisfy the public need for such shopping opportunities. If the state legislature finds that there's a competitive problem with establishments over 10,000 square feet, they can legislate to remediate that problem, similar to what the state has legislated to do with prohibiting chain stores and grocery stores from holding Class A licenses. But currently, our code allows for the issuance of liquor licenses to stores to over 10,000 square feet. That's what Mr. Nikolaev is choosing to do. So for all these reasons, the board must find that Robinson's Liquor has met his burden of proving all of the elements of the liquor license and issue this license.
All right, thank you, Ms. Schreckenhaus. Do you happen to have a site handy for the quad case?
I do actually I have the copy of the case for you.
I just need the site. If you just want to, give
You
me the
ready?
site, that's fine.
It's 135 Maryland App 178.
All right, thank you.
Certainly, it's 2,000.
Perfect, thank you. All right, Mr. Brown.
There's a lot of areas to start with here. Notice that.
Oh, microphone.
I'm not loud enough? That's on. That's on. Now you can hear me? Same voice. A lot of places to start. I mean, do we start with the way we brought the case in the beginning when I asked some questions about why, when you filed your application in Prince George County, on one document did you say you owned 1,000 shares? Then in the other document you showed you owned 4,000 shares. Then you said you owned 100% of the company. Then you showed somebody else owned 25% of the company. Why in one application do you show and acknowledge that you had a DUI, but on the other application you don't talk about the DUI that you had in 2017? The inconsistency in the documentation is there. And what I can't understand is what they do, what Clearview does. They go in and buy up property, own the property, create liquor stores, move it around within the family, and then go get another one. In 2011, 2021, he let the liquor board in Prince George County let him know that he was selling his interest, but he never sold it. And there's evidence that he sold his interest. And there's no application out there that says, I gave my sister as a gift a $2.5 million business. Does that sound logical to you? Does it sound logical that he still has no interest in that one? Credibility is the big thing here. And last time when I asked those questions about how much you got for the business, what was going on, and then we find out his sister, who works full-time for Bank of America, who, according to the document I moved in, has been living up in Boston all this time, is now down here living with him, paying him rent. You know, I think that everything alludes to the fact that he has an interest in another business. And what they do is they buy up the property, they get the license, they put somebody in as a shill to handle the thing for them, then they collect the money. It's pretty easy to see that. They have a place on the Eastern Shore, his whole family. They have a place in Essex. They have a place in Camp Springs. They have a place on the Eastern Shore. They have a place in Prince George County. They own Sammy's Liquors on the corner of Bladensburg Road and South Dakota Avenue as soon as you go into Washington, D.C. This is a conglomerate. It is not a small business. And as his application, not the application, his brochure he sends out to the world says, we are not a corporation. He is a corporation. He's just got a lot of money behind him. I mean, he starts this meeting out with, he's not an oligarch, okay? But yet, everything we see here talks about money, 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 money. And that's one of the issues that come into play under 4210. The fitness of the applicant. We know nothing about his ability to run a liquor store. We only know he has the ability, number one, to take a liquor store from 5,000 square feet or smaller than that, then move it up to 9,500 square feet, and then give it to his sister, and then go start again somewhere else, in a place he doesn't even live. Of
Question is, if he gets this, how long is he going to have this one? Does that matter? You know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, and it shouldn't matter to you all at all. Because if he sells this tomorrow, it's a capitalist society. You can sell and do whatever you want to. But it's not adding to this community, and it's not benefiting this community. You know, if I take anything about the need in the community, the first thing I look at is traffic, traffic, traffic. We have a failing intersection there, which the county, when they come back to you, they tell you because they have to give you approval before you go forward, all they do is talk about the zoning. They don't look at anything else because that shopping center has been approved for how many years? But things have changed up there. And if we follow the plan that he has to make this a regional attraction, I call it an attractive nuisance, meaning it's so nice, everybody comes around and it becomes a nuisance to the rest of the community. So this is an attractive nuisance to me. It's something that will draw people in and cause a problem in the community. The longest time it took Mr. Arison to get to the stores was trying to turn left out of that shopping center on the Robinson Road. What does that tell you? You can't get out of there. And you've got this 5 places right there within a 3-minute drive to a 5-minute drive. And that's only 2 miles away, or 1 mile away. The closest place is Goska's. If we consider Bryanborough, which they still have a license to sell, they can sell certain things. You got Cafe Britannia, which is opening up. You got the Brass Rail, which is coming back around. This place is saturated. You had the owner of Magathy testifying as to how they got their license, because if you look at your records, they were denied the year before. And they came back, and they got it, and the only difference was Victoria's didn't exist. Look at the reports. Look at what the report shows on this one. It talks about all the liquor stores within the radius. Victoria's isn't in there this time. They were in there the first time. There wasn't a need the first time because it was a saturated market. With Victoria's leaving, it left room for one more. Should it have? I don't know that answer. But the board thought it should back then. But that's the last license granted in this area. And the statistics shown by Mr. Patna and also by Mr. Arison don't show that there's been major growth up here. And as Mr. Arison talked about the traffic hasn't changed. It's still a lot of traffic up there. It's still the same. Look, remember the one time when they built 97, they were talking about closing down Ritchie Highway for a period of time, making it a local place. Never happened. All the traffic went to 97, but all the traffic came back to Route 2. Traffic, 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 and that's the problem. And if he's successful, if this place is successful with a 22,000 square foot liquor store, which is equivalent to 10 of the ones at Severna Park Liquors, at Corwell's, 10 times their size, or the average size up there another 5 or 6 times. If he's successful, which he's got to do, then he's bringing in business from all over the county, across the Bay Bridge, into Kent Island, and as far away as Washington, D.C. Remember, it's 33 miles to the Costco, which is on the corner of Route 50 and South Dakota Avenue. As you go into D.C., you see it up there on the hill on the right-hand side. They can sell liquor at Costco up in D.C. That's a 33-mile. Look at that area. It takes in all of Fort Meade. That's why you have a lot of people here from the Fort Meade area, because they're looking at a regional store. Severna Park is not a regional shopping center area. It is a local area. It's where the locals meet. It's where they go. There is no need for this store. You can look right at 4210, and I said, if I call it 10204, which is what it was forever and a day, I apologize. But the public need and desire for the license. Who has shown the public need here? What testimony do they have from the public for the need? You have the owner of the shopping center who wants it there. Then you have a tenant from the shopping center saying the owners aren't worth their weight in gold, weight in anything, because they don't give us anything. They don't do anything. I'll tell you what I think about the owners, is what he said. So you got someone who's discredited by one of their own tenants. So you don't even have a great landlord in this place. What have they shown for the need? Where is the public need? Where is the desire? Where is the clamoring of all the people out here who want this place here? You don't have one. Now, maybe our petitions are no good. Throw them out. We have enough people here today to show you that there's an interest in this community for this place to not be there because they have not proven their case. You are not a rubber stamp. That's not what this liquor board is. This liquor board has never been a rubber stamp. It can't be. You're the conscience of the community. You're here to help the community make the appropriate decisions. You make them to tell them what they can and can't do. You decide how many liquor stores. We're not Baltimore County where there's, you have to buy 150,000, you got to wait till the population changes here. We're in Arundel County. I thought one of the important things that Mr. Harrison pointed out was the fact that that 4,000 number means absolutely nothing. It should be talking about square footage. It should be talking about the size of a place. It should not be talking about how many are in an area. Because you're looking at how it affects the community, how it affects the kids coming out of that high school on their buses or walking up to their job at Clements Hardware or coming to get their car washed over there. How much traffic is going to be coming out of there? That's why I said, do you consider Chick-fil-A as a regional? No, it is not a regional because they're everywhere. The Severna Park people don't go that far apart unless they're going up to where? On Arundel Mills or a Watt Chapel or someplace where it's a regional situation which draws people from all around. But we're not even designated in the Severna Park area for another liquor license, as you know. There's certain growth areas, and where in the Severna Park area is it designated that way? But you look through there, the public need not shown, the number and location of existing license holders. And Mr. Chairman, you asked a question. Why do we disagree with their figure? Because ours is more complete on the number. Ours put all the licenses in there. Just because a license right now is inactive, just because they only sell a beer a year or a drink a year or every 3 weeks or 6 weeks, doesn't mean that license doesn't exist. And they never put listings in their list. But that's there. And if they get health department approval, whatever the case may be, they open up tomorrow with whatever their issues may be. But that license is there and exists, and you haven't taken it away. You haven't voided it. Just like you all let Cafe Britannia turn around and put in a garden over there. Just like the Brass Rail is changing what it's doing. These liquor licenses are important things. And the fact that it doesn't sell on a daily basis, it follows the rules, it can do what it wants to. Then you have all the Class D licenses that they didn't consider, and the Class B license, which is the carryout. Those all have to come into play here. But they're not considered. But if we consider 14, well, there's 6, 8, another 6, and then others, at least 14 to 18 licenses in this area within the 5 to 10 minute range. They're the ones that created the range, not us. I usually look at 1 and 3 and 5 miles at the outside. They looked at 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and 30 miles away. 30 miles away. Their 15-minute takes you down to the Walgreens across from the State Police Barracks by the Navy Stadium in Annapolis. That's where they're drawing their people from. They're interfering to some degree. They're overlapping with another superstore. So what are we supposed to have? A superstore every 15 miles so the big circles are there and all you have is superstores? They got one at total. It's already there. 17 miles away. The potential effect on existing license holders of the license for which application is made. You heard from some of the license holders, but you also heard from a distributor. And that's why I thought Jimmy Kiriazoglu's testimony was important, because he used to sell to all those liquor stores around total. A quarter, I'm sorry. He was a sell up there. He's the one that saw it. His sales as a distributor did not increase. But he was selling a heck of a lot to the superstore up there. Where did that come from? If the sales to all the stores did not increase. It came from the other stores. And when they asked the question, did it put them out of business? I don't know if anybody put it out of business, but it hurt them. It hurt their ability to sell. It hurt their ability to do anything. Just as the accountant, the financial planner who's in here saying, I don't know how people can do it. They put all their money into this. This is their retirement. This is their sale. And it's important. So even though they argue, you can't talk about a liquor store owner who's losing money as a result of it, Section 3 there says, the potential effect on existing license holders of the license for which application is made.
Then, number 4, the potential commonality or uniqueness of the service and products to be offered by the business of the applicant. Well, I tell you what, if wider aisles make a commonality and make it different, then you got to grant it. If this rises and falls on the fact that he's got wider aisles than anywhere else around, 7, 8, 9 foot aisles, those are larger than grocery stores. What's the purpose of an aisle that wide? To make extra carts go back and forth so they can go 2 and 3 way. They're probably one-way signs on some of them. I don't know. I didn't see that in the pictures. But what is unique about this other than it's half an acre of floor space? That's a lot of space. Number 5, the impact of the license for which applications made on the health, safety, and welfare of the community, including issues relating to crime, traffic, parking, or convenience. Where is the convenience? I guess the convenience is that I can get a shopping cart and go up to Total or Quarter, and I can fill up my shopping cart for my special events. So whoopee-doo. So once a year, I have the convenience of not having to go to different places to get different things. Where's the convenience to the public by having 22,000 square feet here when you have down to Annapolis, all the places down to Arnold, all the places north up to Magathie that are all involved? All businesses are good, current business, run and operated by local individuals who give back to this community on a daily basis. We're talking about a community here. We're talking about a community that's existed for a long time. You heard how long Goska's has been involved. You've heard how long Fish Paws has been around. You heard about Cliff Dawson starting this place. You heard about Cornwalls and their history and their family. Their grandfather built that place. These are places that are here to stay. They don't turn over too often because they're family run, which is the fiber of our society, which we're losing. Not going to get into politics too much. Maybe I will. We'll think about that one. But we're losing the fiber, and you've got a fiber here. Grounds for denial of the license. The local licensing board shall deny a license application if the local licensing board determines that the granting of the license is not necessary to accommodate the public. I ask you what the accommodation is to the public. I guess if we find one person in the public who's better accommodated by this, if we look at Quan and all the other cases out there, then I guess you got to grab it. Because if somebody thinks they're accommodated by having 22,000 square foot who lives on Kent Island and it's easier for him to go there than it is to go to Total, then I guess you got to grab it. That's not a part of our community. That's not a part of our public. That's not a part of our neighborhood. Your neighborhood here is Severna Park. It's that shopping center. It's across the street at Brian Borough. It's going down the old roads over where Goska's is, going down the back road where you can get the Fish Paws on either side, or cutting down where Dawson's, which has been there forever. That's the community. It's not the community of drawing people here from the Eastern Shore. The applicant is not a fit person to receive the license. I won't go there. Do I think he's a fit person? I don't know enough about him. I just don't like what I see here as their history, is what they're doing. I don't like the way their family operates this whole situation. This is a conglomerate. It's not a small situation, because as soon as he starts one, I don't have any interest in any other places. I had a gas station here. But he gives it to his sister. Like my father told me when my brother came and I was ready, I got one. They're handing it down. They're creating a conglomerate. This is not a small business. Their hands are in everything. The applicants made a material false statement in the application, not in our application. I don't think we look at 4,000 shares of stock, 1,000 shares of stock, 75% ownership, 25% ownership, 100% ownership, which is on all those documents that I moved in the beginning. Look at the inconsistency in all those documents. But it's not made a false application before you all. That's only in other applications. The applicant has acted fraudulently in connection with this application. You know, they haven't acted fraudulently. But that's a pretty raw deal to go in and go on to Fish Paws website, take their information and say, here's how much she makes off of selling a bottle of wine. Here's this. They handpicked what they did. They handpicked the ones they brought in here. They didn't go to the others, the lost leaders, the one that you come in to buy and things like that. He's targeting his neighbors. Do you want that in this community? I don't know how many of the other neighbors he targeted. And I asked him today about the question. You got a whole dossier basically understood. Well, after her testimony last time, but he was testified last time as all her figures.
how much she makes. And they put it in their closing argument. That's better than the national average. For the ones he handpicked and he chose. Is that fraudulent? No. Is it rotten? Yes. And that thing shouldn't happen. If somebody who says he wants to be a part of this community is coming down here to live, to alienate the people who he's got to deal with on a daily basis. Let's get down to the other one, the last one. Well, if the license is issued, the operation authorized by the license would unduly disturb the peace of the residents of the neighborhood of the location described in the application. Well, I'm not sure what the neighborhood is described in their application. Is it Severna Park? Is it Arnold? Is it Severna Burney, if we put the two together? Is it all of Anne Arundel County? Is it Fort Meade? Is it Kent Island? What is the neighborhood? And we're supposed to consider disturbing the peace of the residents of the neighborhood of the location. Described. It's not described. But you know what the neighborhood is here. That neighborhood is bordered all around. The homes all around this place. This is not like Total Wines, which is in the center of something, meaning an industrial area, really, and a big shopping area, where highways come around to get to it. You have access. You have all the feeder roads coming in there. This is a closed road area where you impact every resident who lives in Severna Park and every resident who's driving from Annapolis, where they may work, or Arnold, where they may work, back to Glen Burnie, where they may live, or vice versa. That's the neighborhood, not their 30 miles, not their superstore. So where is the neighborhood that they're trying to satisfy? You can't be here to satisfy the Eastern Shore neighborhood. You're not here to satisfy up in Washington, D.C. You're not here to satisfy the 30-mile radius that they're talking about. You're here to take care of this neighborhood, because that's all we have here is neighborhoods. And that's the bothersome thing. They haven't defined their neighborhood where you have a jurisdiction to help it. Then the last thing, for other reasons that the local licensing board considers sufficient. We know that this is a superstore, and we know that over 10,000 square feet, the office, is it ATM? ATM?
Comptroller.
Huh?
The comptroller.
Comptroller's office. What was it, though? The initials. That's it. Thank you all. Thank you. I appreciate it. They have to make a final decision, but if you look at the last three decisions they've made up there, they followed whatever the board said. They defer to you. They defer to you. That's why they wouldn't decide this thing beforehand, which is kind of crazy, because it should go to them first to see if they have a blessing, just like you have to go to planning and zoning in order to get a blessing on the zoning aspect of it. But no, they let you do the heavy work. And this is a heavy work to do. You know I like to talk, and I continue to talk. And I thank you, sir. I appreciate that. But sometimes I don't know when to stop, and I need to stop at times. But I'm just concerned. And I'm concerned about the question that Mr. Duffy asked about the crime in that area. And we didn't do any crime studies. I'm concerned about the traffic impact situations. I'm concerned about why their numbers show a lot less stores than our show. There's so much here that says you can't grant this license. There's so much here that says they haven't proven their points. There's so much here that says we're not just going to give a license to everybody that comes off the street and gets it, even though this is a capitalist society and we believe in competition, because I believe in competition. But I don't believe in it when you're coming in here and you're saying, and when we hear from their expert, they get a big discount on the liquor, but they don't pass the discount along to the community because they want to make the money at total. Is this going to be any different? I don't know. But they have the ability, by buying that 25 or 50 or 100 cases, to undercut everybody else in the community. I mean, if you were from Annapolis, I talked to you about Juvenile Sales, who was put out of business by Toys R Us, who was then put out of business by Amazon. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about getting rid of the foundation of this country, the 20 million small businesses around here. And you're affecting every one of them. I have no disrespect for somebody who wants to get ahead in life and do what he can to make a buck on the thing. He could have done that in PG County if he'd have sold his liquor store for something that was worth the right of money rather than passing it down to his sister. That one still irks me a little bit. I love my family too and everything, but just giving it as a gift, I'd like to see the tax return to see if they filed a gift tax return to see who paid the taxes on that. I guarantee you there's none filed. So where do we go from here? You have every reason in the world not to grant this license. You have every reason to support anything you want to from the testimony that's been presented by the 31 or 32. We go with 31 because his number is better than mine. Okay. So with the 31 people sitting out there, you know, if these 300 names that they have, this 1.9% of people where they sent the things to, were that interested, then maybe 1% of them would have shown up. That's 3 people to support it. I'm sorry, 1.9% times that, almost 6 people, I'm sorry. They needed 6 people here. They couldn't get it. I'm not even going to talk about the signatures because you throw those out half the time anyway. They're there, unfortunately, they're there to make us feel good sometimes. We know that, to show what the support is for the community. But she couldn't point out that any of those 1,500 names, maybe but 10 or 20 or a page of them were bad. But you have, let's cut it in half. Let's say 750 people objected to it. That's a lot of objection. And a lot of those people showed up here tonight. We don't fight a lot of licenses. I don't fight a lot of licenses. I've fought 2 major ones in the past 10 years. And I only fight them when they need to be fought. This is one that needs to be fought. You don't want to turn Severna Park into a regional hub for a 22,000 square foot liquor store less than a half a mile away from their high school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Ms. Schreckengast, last word. You need a minute? Yeah. Okay.
What did I miss?
I will make it short and sweet.
Fantastic.
The testimony that was provided earlier on March 8th from Mr. Nikolaev was that the store was gifted to his sister. It was an IRS tax benefit for financial planning purposes. We can get Mr. Brown the tax return, doesn't matter. The bottom line is Mr. Nikolaev does not hold a liquor license anywhere else. His family has a history of gifting things down to keep people strong and surviving. He's not involved with the other conglomerates, as Mr. Brown would have you believe. He is going to be the sole owner of this liquor store. That's it. He's not involved with the other businesses that Mr. Brown brought to your attention tonight. It's one and only. He is a fit and proper person to hold a liquor license. There's really not much point in me just going back and forth with everything Mr. Brown had to say, but I will tell you that, you know, he harped again on the Magathy opinion. You can read that for yourself and see what the board and how they came to their conclusion on issuing that license. This is an LLC. It's not a corporation. It's a single-owned entity. Mr. Brown talked about us not including the B and D licenses in our analysis. We explained to you why. The one D that was included was Fish Boss because it operates as more of a Class A store. There's a different market for Bs and Ds. They don't, just because you have the ability to do off sales doesn't mean you're in the same market as a Class A. That's why they have a different designation. I'm going to leave it at that and just, you know, the evidence speaks for itself. We have met our burden of proof that there is a need for this license, and the board can take everything into consideration as you see fit. So with that, I'm going to rest.
Thank you, Ms. Schreckengast. As everybody's aware, the board will issue a written opinion on this matter to follow. We do need to get approval from the comptroller's office as well. So once we have the record of tonight's proceedings, we will submit everything to the comptroller's office. And once we hear from the comptroller's office, the board will issue its written decision. Okay? That's it.
Sounds good. The hearing is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Half hour early.
Pleasure, Mr. Brown.
Nothing personal, you know that.
I understand.
But I just fight.
I understand. This is why I'm shaking your hand. This is why I'm shaking
And
your
I
hand.
appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
Okay, good luck.
No.